Plead the fifth.
Ready when you are, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Wanda Minnings, and I'm the chair of the Corporate Services Committee. It's 9 a.m., and I would like to call this meeting to order. Agenda item B, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we will go to agenda item C.
Madam Chair, one
Yes.
card.
I have a pecuniary interest on the consent agenda. D 2.1, Coldwater District Agriculture Society waiving fees. I am a member. D 2.2, Coldwater Lions waiving fees, and I am a member.
Thank you very much. Noted. Thank you, clerk, for alerting me to that. Okay, agenda item C, delegations. Please be advised that in accordance with Council's procedural bylaw, no decision will be made at our meeting today regarding your delegations. The committee will do one of the following. A, refer the matter to staff for a report. B, refer the matter to future budget deliberations. Or C, take no action. We have two delegations presenting to committee this morning. And first, agenda item C.1, I would like to welcome the delegation from the Georgian Bay General Hospital Foundation on behalf of the Georgian Bay General Hospital to provide a general update. Please come to the microphone and kindly introduce yourselves before you begin speaking. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me this morning. My name is Jen Russell. I am the, yeah, sure that's in there. I'm the Director of Communications and Engagement for the Georgian Bay General Hospital Foundation. Although we're not directly in your community, the Township of Severn has supported indirectly our hospital, and I just thought it was important for you to have an update on what's happening at our hospital, because there are residents from your community that do by default, whether they're traveling, whether they are cottaging, do receive services at GBGH. Next slide, please. That one's good. Thank you. So you have been very supportive through the Southeast Georgian Bay Chamber of Commerce Golf Tournament, the Seg Bay Golf Tournament, since it started in 2014. I know that you are always part of that, so thank you very much. That tournament has actually supported our hospital with more than $260,000 since its inception, providing really important funding for equipment and technology at the hospital. So thank you very much for supporting them so that they can continue to support us. On the next slide, we'll go through that one quickly. I'm not necessarily the expert on all the projects at the hospital, but what the foundation does directly supports our hospital. And so I'm just going to give you an update on some of the things that are happening, and we'll answer any questions, and anything I can't answer, I will get you an answer for. So we are a very busy hospital. Our hospital sees more than 42,000 visits to our emergency department every year. And lots of diagnostic testing, as you would expect in a community hospital, significant volumes of ultrasound, CT, X-ray, and hundreds of thousands of laboratory tests. Our foundation is very busy supporting those services, as you'll see in the presentation. And we have a big crew, so more than 1,100 staff and professional staff and volunteers support our hospital every day. well, not every day, but over the course of the year. So our first priority moving on is MRI. So right now, the hospital is building a 2,000 square foot addition onto our building, and this will house a new MRI for our community. This is the first one that we will have in sort of the Midland area. And it becomes really important because there's more than 4,000 people who leave our community every year to receive this imaging. The good news is, as we build this at GBGH, that will actually help with wait times across the region, as you can imagine, because our residents right now are going to OSMH and RVH for those services, and that just increases wait times across the board. So more capacity obviously is going to have a big impact, even on residents here who are waiting for those services. This construction started in June, and they're going as fast as possible, obviously with the urgency, with the expectation to be completed by the end. They're saying Q1, so by the end of March is what I add that up to be. It was really exciting to watch the construction, but now they've moved inside to do all the inside stuff, so it's not quite as fun to see anymore. So the next slide, surgical activity is also something that we've invested a lot in over the last number of years. Our hospital, even in the past 2 years, has really ramped up surgeries and is looking at probably between 130 and 170% of those pre-COVID surgery numbers. The ways that they're doing this is definitely bringing more surgeries and types of surgeries to our hospital, investing in the equipment needed to do ENT, gynecology, orthopedic surgeries, and inviting surgeons from outside of the community to actually provide care in our hospital for patients in our community. So rather than 25 patients traveling to a different hospital, one surgeon makes one travel day and does all of those surgeries in one day locally, which has been really productive. And it allows us to bring new surgeries, new types of surgeries that otherwise patients would have to travel a lot further for. Following our MRI project, we're going to be investing in mammography. Again, it's all about bringing those services and care closer to home for our residents. This allows us to do diagnosis in all levels, I would say, for breast cancer right in our community. So we will have 3D mammography. We have invested in a breast coil that goes with the MRI. So that means that all of the diagnosis can really happen locally. Right now, wait times, even if you do have a breast cancer diagnosis, to get the different tests done, wait times can be months. We spoke to a woman recently who waited a year from the time she first had pain to the time she actually had her surgery. And in part, that's because you're waiting for MRI, you're waiting for mammography. So really, it's about bringing care closer to home and reducing those wait times in our community. Following that, mental health is obviously something that I think we're all very aware of. Our hospital is not funded to provide acute mental health services, and yet we see more than 1,700 patients in acute mental health crisis every year. Unfortunately, with not being funded, there's no psychiatrist on staff. It means that people are waiting for an acute mental health bed somewhere in the region. They're often waiting in a safe room, which is very small, white room, one exam bed. Patients can wait up to 100 hours, so 5 days in a very small space, because there just aren't enough beds in our region. It's not a criticism of other facilities. There just isn't the capacity to accommodate all these patients requiring mental health support and care. So on the next slide, you'll see our plan. Our hope is to add 50,000 square feet, which would be 24 acute mental health beds, 16 that would be regional mental health beds that would accommodate patients from all over our region in mental health crisis, and 8 that would be specialized geriatric beds. It also has an outpatient program, which I think is really key and unique in our hospital, in that as people are getting better and recovering, they're ready to go home. Sometimes community resources are harder to access. And so having an outpatient program at our hospital is going to allow them to be discharged from the hospital, but continue to attend the same sessions with the same therapists that they have been while they were an inpatient. So that program would continue as well. This, you'll see the white line through it, actually becomes a bridge to our new hospital. So on the next slide, you'll see a timeline that sort of gives you how the next couple of decades is going to look. We are obviously right in the thick of equipment and technology, mammography, MRI, We will be investing in mental health. So that's kind of our focus for the next 5 years. And then on the heels of that, our foundation owns the 22 acres of land, vacant land beside the hospital. The investment was made so that we would have a place to build a new hospital when the time was right. We are in the capital development stages of doing that because, like most hospitals in our region, we're bursting at the seams, and there just isn't the space to care for all the patients that are seeking care in our community. 2030, our president and CEO likes to say 2030X is like his timeline for when he's hoping this is happening. Again, it depends on government funding and how we manage to pull this off, but that is the plan because there really is a need for more capacity for healthcare. I'll just give you a brief overview of how our foundation actually supports and how the community kind of rallies around our hospital. I didn't talk a lot about equipment, but a big part of what our foundation funds every year is capital equipment. This allows our hospital to stay on top of technology. In the past year, we funded, I think it's about $3 million. This included ultrasound, redoing our x-ray rooms, which were more than 20 years old, new surgical tables with the investment in surgery. Obviously, needing to have the right tables and the right equipment in those rooms becomes really important. And then on the docket this year, we've committed $2 million in addition to the $4 million we've committed for the MRI. And this will allow us to buy equipment like the examples that are shown here. In our lab, we're doing a lot of work to invest in equipment that automates some of the testing that's done. It makes the test faster, and it allows our technologists to be more available to do the more manual tests that need to be done, making sure that nobody's waiting and we can get results and answers fast, especially when we're talking about emergency situations. Patient beds, that's where you're going to be if you're hanging out in the hospital. And so we want these to be comfortable. Beds wear down over time, as you can imagine, even at home. So for patient comfort and safety, investing in new beds is a top priority. And medication dispensing. So keeping medication safely stored wherever there are patients in a hospital is really important. These units keep them locked. Only nurses in those spaces can actually access the medication. And as the hospital has grown and we've sort of made some makeshift patient units, if you will, we need to make sure there's medication available for those patients in those areas. So lastly, I'll just give you a sneak peek as to what's coming up for our foundation. So in 2025, we will be launching a capital campaign to raise $20 million for equipment and mental health, obviously including MRI and mammography. This campaign is really focused on We See You. So that's the name. We see as the hospital, we see the patients coming in, we see their suffering, we see that we want to care for them. And it talks to our hospital, to our donors, actually seeing our hospital, seeing the importance of healthcare, having an important, thriving hospital in our community, being there and willing to invest in it. And I think it's really about bringing our whole community together to invest in the things that are most important to us, which for a lot of us is healthcare. So I'll just stop there and say thank you for allowing me to give you a bit of an update today. I hope the information is useful to you. And thank you for continuing to support our partners with the Seg Bay Golf Tournament. If you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if I can't, like I said, if I can't answer them, I will get you an answer for them for sure.
Thank you very much, Ms. Russell, for your presentation. Right now, I'd like to ask our committee members if they have any questions. Okay, so I see a card up for Member Burkett. Oh, was that Member McIntyre?
Yes, Chair, it was.
Okay.
To Ms. Russell, how many beds do you get for $540,000?
It's an excellent question. So that total cost actually includes some specialized beds. So we've invested in new ICU beds. It's probably easier for me to say that inpatient beds are probably around $19,000 each. ICU beds are more like 35 to 40. And then there's some specialty beds because as people change and the size of people change, bariatric beds become really important as well. So they range between $19,000 and $40,000 for those beds. That doesn't do our whole hospital. That's that's going to be a phased approach of beds. I know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Member Cox.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm glad to hear about your MRI. That's wonderful. And we do have quite a few people who do utilize your hospital because they go Midland for their doctors. So they
Oh, okay.
obviously go there. That would be sort of from Coldwater the other way over
Yeah.
through Featherton area. I just wanted to thank you, and I'm glad to see that your one of your priorities is mental health. But you also have Waypoint, right? So
Yeah.
you'll be working hand in hand with them, because I do know that many hospitals have what they call specialties. So some
Mhm.
hospitals do dialysis, some do a lot of orthopedic, and your orthopedic, that's a good news story, because those wait times are like 2 years, 3 years,
Right.
4 years. And so it's good to know that you're moving on with that one too. So I just want to thank you and the community, because I know that if it wasn't for your foundation, the hospitals wouldn't have what they need to have. And it's a great thing. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just on the Waypoint piece, for sure, they have regional acute mental health beds, as we are applying for as well. The biggest thing is that about 45% of patients who come into the emergency department seeking acute mental health care also have a medical issue. And so that can't actually be addressed at Waypoint because it is strictly a psychiatric hospital. So providing medical care and mental health care in the same space allows people to get the best care faster. And so that's partly why having those beds in a hospital is why we're kind of pursuing
Totally.
that.
And I understand that. And
Yeah.
and we all know that there's people waiting 2-3 years for that also. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Burkett, please.
You, Madam Chair, and thank you, Marcy, for the presentation. Good presentation. Of the 42,861 emergency visits, do you track how many patients have doctors, or are they there because they don't have a doctor?
It's an excellent question. I don't think they're tracked at that point, whether they have a family physician or not, because in an emergency department, they are just being treated regardless of why they've chosen to come. I think we know that there's a huge amount of people waiting for a family physician. Our hospital has chosen to bring in physician recruitment into the hospital as part of, like, to basically fund a physician recruiter, both for community physicians and for hospital physicians. And so that is something that the hospital works on through that person to bring more family physicians into the community. But at this point, we don't know exactly when people come in.
Supplementary, if I may, through you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So do we, like, what does it cost for an hour? Is that the way they charge the province when someone comes through or do you know how that works? Like, I get mixed figures as to what it actually costs.
I don't know that I won't have the right answer for you. I think most of it is procedure based, or depending on the acuity or what is being done when they come into the hospital. But I will get an answer for you on that, because I won't be able to speak to that with any confidence. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have a motion to receive for information, please?
Thank you, I do. So the motion just reads that the delegation from Jennifer Russell from Georgian Bay General Hospital providing a general update be received for information.
Thank you. And sorry, I'm having trouble seeing council. And moved by Member Jansen, seconded by Member McIntyre. All in favor? And carried. Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Now I would like to ask Murray Lovering to come forward to the microphone. We're on agenda item C2 regarding potential flooding of Matchedash Bay to neighboring properties. And thank you, Mr. Lovering, as you get settled, for providing in advance a copy of your letter to the province and your 4-page slide presentation that our clerk will project on the screen on your behalf as you're speaking. Welcome. The floor is yours.
I need you to sit down.
I have a hearing disability and everybody says that I speak too loud. I'm afraid I would drown out your ears. Do you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
You will hear me, okay. Mr. Burkett, Your Honor, because of the importance of this topic, it will be with you for months and years. I'm sure of it because of the details I will tell you about it. Therefore, I humbly request that I have at least 20 minutes to do it, because I can't do it in 10. I'll leave you hanging with details and you won't. There's no one else but me that can do this, because my close friend Shirley Gladall, who happened to be with this topic, is no longer with us. So I am the only person alive that knows about this topic. So I request the extra time.
Madam Chair.
So, yeah, thank you. Over to Madam Clerk, please, for a decision on that.
Now, what do you want me to do now?
Hi. And that is council's discretion as to whether or not they grant that exemption, so. Mr. Murray, I'm gonna need you to, Lovering, sorry, I keep mixing up your first name with your last name. I need you to use the microphone, sir.
You want me to sound it?
Yeah.
Maybe
Yes,
Yeah.
only if he's near the microphone.
I think I'd rather stand. Your Honor, Mr. Mayor, do I get the extra 10 minutes? I thank you very much. This whole topic relates to the Minister of Highways' construction of the Highway 400 northbound lane, which was built in 1955 era. Okay? The farmers in the area watched the construction of the bridge and the causeway highway. A handful of farmers from Matchedash, the old township, had an interest in this because they could see right away that they were constructing a dike right across the north end of Matchedash Bay, a dike and a bridge. Their very livelihood, yes. We're talking about this part of the highway. This was done in 1955. When they completed this, of course, they started the southbound lane. Okay, all right. Now, the handful of farmers were naturally interested in what was going on there. You can see that it is definitely a dike. You see, it's covering the lowlands there, and the water used to flow from Matchedash Bay through here, and there was a wide opening in this Duck Bay Bridge. It was the first bridge that was done, and the people who did that knew that they had to have complete access to Georgian Bay. This is the only access to Georgian Bay is this bridge here. And remember, it's draining property all the way from Mount St. Louis right through to Bass Lake. Draw a line between those two parts and you'll see a huge area of drainage. Now, to get to the farmers that raised the issues here. In 1960, it was a good spring, good planting spring. The crops were all in the ground. Everything was good until May the 1st, 1960. And it started to rain. I mean, rain. It came down in buckets. I was there. It lasted for 7 consecutive days. We do have rain gauges, and we measured everything, and 8 inches of rain fell in 7 days. So what? Well, of course, the crops upstream were flooded and destroyed. They lost everything that they planted.
Where you can point where his farm is, etc.
Yeah. Coldwater in here, yeah. That's good, but my eyes aren't as good as yours, Mark. I'm sorry. Now, the farmers knew they lost really the advantage of having good drainage on their farms because of the bridge that was built. So what did they do on the 8th day of this flooding? They collected at the bridge by way of Marsh's Marina in Wabashine. They walked out onto the docks there and looked under the bridge. There was a waterfall, a huge waterfall, and it was obvious to them that the bridge was too narrow and the dike along with it was obstructing the full flow of water into Georgian Bay. And as I said before, it's the only access. There are no accesses here. It's just that one right there. Now, what they did, of course, they wanted a detailed inspection of this rise in the water of Matchedash Bay. The bay came up extensively and was very slow to drain out, hence the loss of the crops. Then they thought, look, we need more technical support here. So they hired Don Gilbreth, an OLS land surveyor from Coldwater, to bring his transit out right away. He put the transit up, he checked the level of Matchedash Bay and Georgian Bay. There was a 13-inch difference in the levels. In other words, the dike and the bridge were holding up an immense amount of water. So from there, they decided we should approach the Member of Parliament in Coldwater, Lloyd Leatherby. They explained the situation to Lloyd. Lloyd agreed, there's a problem, we must look into it. And he sent a message by phone and letter to the Ministry of Highways. There was no reply. Not a word. The ministry never sent any messages, any people up to look at the problem. They totally ignored it. So what do? They're very concerned. I mean, they've lost what they've lost and they will lose later. So they were very desperate over the situation. And it looked as if the only way out was a legal part, hiring a lawyer and suing the ministry for the losses and the future problems. So my father was in county council at that time, and he connected with a lawyer in county council who connected with a lawyer on Bay Street, Toronto. The name was Mr. McMillan. Mr. McMillan's office was very close to where I was living down there. I spent a whole morning with him going over this problem with the bridge and the dike. After that, he said, look, you're going to go nowhere with these people. I said, why? Because they won't listen to you unless you have technical support by a hydrologist. 2 days later, he found the hydrologist at the University of Toronto, Mr. Ted Lord, Dr. Lord. By the way, he died about 15 years ago, and the obituary was in the Globe and Mail, and I read it, and I said, we certainly had the right hydrologist. So he, after that, Dr. Lord, not Lloyd, Dr. Lord contacted my father, and the two of them boated down the North River because Lord wanted to see this dike and this bridge problem. He didn't want to hear about it. He wanted to be there and see it. So my dad told me the story that when they went down towards the dike, Lord said, just a minute, I got to really look at this road across here. And he said, it is a dike. There's no doubt about it because there's no openings through here or through there. You see, before these bridges or roads, this is fully open. The waters from here would go to there, here to there, and so on. So Lord spoke to the ministry and told them to dredge under the bridge. He thought dredging under the bridge would create a bigger flow pattern and would help, but it wouldn't solve the problem. The problem would always be there because the bridge was too damn narrow. And after that, we were stuck. But the lawyer suggested we need a meeting with the Downsview group. That is the engineer that built this faulty bridge, plus my father, plus Glenn Lovering, and myself and our lawyer, and a roundtable discussion. The engineer to the issue, the bridge, he engineered the bridge, was disgustingly unapologetic. Not one word of comfort to us, like even to say, you came all the way down here to talk about this issue. His attitude was, I don't want to talk about it. In fact, he told us directly, I could have made the bridge much narrower. I didn't need that width at all. You know, and the attitude of him really put the farmers off. What could they do? And there were so many discussion points. And he asked a question which really puts the minister in a box, I think. He said, where are you from? Where are your farms? He said, we never saw any farms. We just built the bridge. They just laid that highway in there, built the bridge. They didn't know what was south of the bridge at all. Imagine doing that amount of construction without checking about the territory. They ignored that totally. So the only thing that was done was a bit of dredging, and Dr. Lord said that it would not really correct the problem. So there we are with the situation. Now, the amount of water that built up in that 1960s rainfall created 13 inches of headwater. Okay. Now that was from a rainfall of 8 inches on the 8th of May. Well, think of it. A rainfall of 8 inches creates 13 inches. Just check the rainfall from some of the hurricanes coming up each year. North Carolina, 2 feet. Most of the hurricanes would be about 15 inches or so. If you factor that in, if a hurricane wanders up through the Ohio Valley, across Lake Ontario, into Ontario, you would probably lose Coldwater. You would lose masses of subdivisions and everything in the Edie Valley. And you won't be able to do a thing. What will the ministry do? Oh, we didn't know about it. They never checked. So they didn't know a thing about it. And so what can we do? Well, of course, the ministry will not want to redo the bridge. It would cost too much money. But how much money would they have to pay off if they were held responsible? So I suggest to Mr. Burkett and your council to contact the ministry and point blankly tell them that if there is serious flooding and loss of property and lives, that they are responsible, and get it in paper so that when that day comes 30 years from now, 40 years from now, or tomorrow, or wherever, they are responsible. So it's on the record. So they can't just say, we didn't know about it. They would know. And of course, they're going to say, well, we can't afford to fix the bridge. We haven't got that kind of money. And then I would just tell them, do you have the kind of money to recreate the community, the lovely community that I've loved forever? It would be billions. North Carolina are into their third or fourth billion now. It destroyed all our infrastructure, all our road base, villages, everything. Of course, Americans are builders. They're so patriotic, and I'm sure they'll correct it. Whether we have that attitude up here, I don't know, Mr. Burkett, but I'm serious about it. I won't be around when it happens, but it's just that the hurricanes are coming up more frequently and they're larger. The water that drops on the ground is much greater. So when it comes to October, November next year, you will be thinking, if one gets up through the Ohio Valley and then over Lake Ontario into, our area. And remember Hazel. Okay, I was only 15, 16 years old, and it rained all night. Started the day and went all night. Dropped 5 inches of rainfall over the basin there. And interesting little side story. The mayor of Coldwater was Ernie Miller. He phoned my father and said, "Do you have a boat and a motor and a rope?" Dad said, "Yes, we have that. It's all in the shed there." So myself and my dad got in the boat. We launched it not far from Graymore on the highway, and there was 2 feet of water. 2 feet of water. What were we there for? We had to save cows. There were cows floating down towards the river, and all you could see is their horns and ears, and they were paddling along. So we had a rope, we put a rope around each one and pulled them to higher ground. They were Bruce Spearman's cows. And well, we did something, but I'm thinking at that time, the highway wasn't built. There was no bridge. There was free access of that water to go into Georgian Bay.
Excuse me, Mr. Lovering. I'm just doing a time check for you, sir. I've been monitoring it. So you've got about 3 or 4 minutes left if you have closing remarks, or if you want the clerk to advance to another slide. It's totally your choice. Thank you.
Pardon?
They've given you some time, so you have 3 minutes left, so wrap her down, if you want to just finish up with your closing remarks.
Okay. There's nothing else that I can say except this issue won't go away. How much pressure you can put on the highways department? Oh, there's another story I must tell you. This engineer that was so insulting was also the engineer for the Moon River Bridge. Okay? They built the highway right up to the shore of the Moon River. Paved it and everything. And then, of course, the bridge crew came in and did soundings on the bank of the Moon River. It wasn't suitable for a bridge. So what did they do? They moved the bridge downstream. What did they do with the highway, the kilometer of highway that is all ready to go? They drilled holes in it and planted trees so that nobody would know what the mistake was. Same engineer, 2 problems. Why wasn't he fired? I don't know. And I thank you for listening. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Lovering. Now I will defer to the committee. If you have any questions, thank you. We will start with Member Burkett and then go to Member Cox and Member Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Lovering. Can we go back to that picture, Allison, please? The one of the highway?
Lovely.
Yes.
What was here? Did they fill? Is that what they did?
Yeah.
Did they fill, did the province fill this?
Yes. Fill this in.
The whole thing, so this
Yes.
whole thing was
Yes.
filled in? Okay.
So it was obvious it was a dike, as in hog. Okay. Draining all that property.
We need the microphones, please, if you're going to step away from them, if you don't mind taking a microphone with you so that those viewing on YouTube and virtually can hear. Thanks so much.
Okay,
Okay,
the microphone, the ones that are on.
Okay, this spring, there were heavy rains and of course, I went over and checked the bridge. Yes, the flow was greater, but the elevation wasn't that great. But I just wanted to check it. It's a problem that's there. It won't go away. Any
Thank
other?
you, Member Cox.
Murray, thank you very much for this information. We didn't have this information, so it's a good thing you brought it forward to us. I'm not sure what and how we can do something with it, but we need to let someone know. And if you hadn't brought it forward, we wouldn't have known this. And I never even realized it till I saw that picture of the bridge, what it really had squished it in from before. So once again, thank you very much. And I'm glad you came and brought this to our attention.
Well, thank you. And I thank Mark Taylor for moral support. He's a great guy. Keep it.
Wow.
Thank you. Over to Member Taylor, please, and then Member McIntyre.
Through the chair to Murray, just for the committee's information, Murray, how long has your family been checking water levels and weather on the North River?
My father came back from the west.
Murray, you gotta speak.
Okay. Came back from the west. He was going to be a doctor in Saskatchewan. He changed his mind and took over the farm, and that would be in let's see, that would be about 1918. So he took over John Lovering's farm and expanded it quite a bit. You see all the lowlands along the North River. And of course, the farm is now run by my son, Stephen, and his dear wife, Leanne. Yes.
And just as through the chair, I would just ask if staff could have a report on this. And I'll pass.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to go to Member McIntyre and then Member Jansen, please.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Levering. I was going to, just as you said, ask for a staff report, but thank you very much for your presentation. Very enlightening from 1960 till now, and still we have the headache. So perhaps a staff report would enlighten us a little better and we can maybe act on it. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, well, thank you for your interest. Very good.
Thank you, Member Jansen.
Thank you. And through the chair, Mr. Levering, thank you very much for coming and sharing your experience with us. It's valuable insight. I'm wondering if in that spring of 1960, when these heavy rains were here, was there flooding in the village of Coldwater?
What was your question, sir?
Was there flooding in the village in 1960?
Yes.
What was there flooding in 1960 in the village of Coldwater? Mr.
Okay. Another thing I didn't tell you, Georgian Bay has a fluctuation in its level that amounts to about 4 feet. If Georgian Bay is low, okay, it gives better access. So at the time of the first flooding here we talked about, the Georgian Bay was low. If it had been high, the flooding would have been much more serious. Can you predict the level of Georgian Bay? No, never. Many people think they can. It's unpredictable. The high is in 1986. The low was in 1964.
But I think Member Jansen was asking Mr. Lovering, when the flooding happened in 1960, did the village of Coldwater flood?
Not much, no, because it was very low at that period. See, the freeboard of Coldwater is only about 4 feet. At the high in Coldwater in 86, you know, the town dock in Coldwater where they all fish off of, it was flooded. Yeah. And look at it now, it's about 6 feet above the level. It's incredible, really. Nice to have something from Coldwater here.
Thank you, Mr. Lovering.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lovering, for your presentation. I will turn to our clerk for a motion, please.
Thank you. The motion reads that the delegation by Murray Lovering regarding the potential flooding of Matchedash Bay to neighboring properties be received and referred for staff report.
Thank you. And do I have a mover? Moved by member Taylor, seconded by member Jansen. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Lovering, for coming in today.
We'll let you.
Don't put it in the dust basket.
Wait.
Okay, we're on agenda item D, which is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an agenda item from the consent agenda? Okay, member Jansen.
I'd like to pull item D 2.1 and D 2.2, please.
Thank you. Anything else? Member Cox. Hello, member Cox.
I just was trying, I didn't hear what Councillor Jansen said. What did he say? 2.1 and 2.2?
Yes, he did.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda? No? Okay, so, sorry, I'm just getting back to my page here. Agenda item E. We will move to adopt the agenda. May I have a motion read, please?
Certainly, the motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items with the exception of items D 2.1 and D 2.2.
Thank you. And do I have a mover? Moved by member Cox, seconded by member McIntyre. All in favor? And carried. You a request to speak? Go ahead, member Cox.
I was just wondering, with Mr. Moffat being here, if we could move to F.4.1 administration.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, I was just going to speak to that. The clerk let me know ahead of time. So we are moving on to agenda item F. We have several reports from officials for direction, and we will be starting with item F.4, which is an administration report, number A 24-033. Chief Administrative Officer Performance Review Process Updates. And I would like Mr. Mike Moffat, our consultant, to come to the microphone, please, and speak to that. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. Would you like me to just jump right in? Okay, thank you. So on the performance review committee in last July, I was asked to come back to council with some ways to streamline the process in regards to the CAO performance evaluation system. So I've come up with 3 recommendations. In fact, there's really only 2 recommendations, because the third recommendation is whatever we do, we need to make sure that the CAO and the mayor are aware prior to the commencement of the process to follow, just so we don't change processes midstream. So when I looked at from an HR perspective, I looked at boards of directors, and I looked at private sector and I looked at public sector. And a couple examples, we got Simcoe County, there's 32 councillors. I looked at City of Toronto when there was 56, now they're down to 25. Looked at York Region, they have a number of councillors. So when it came down to doing the CAO's performance evaluation process, it really fell on the chair. Now, that doesn't mean we did not exclude input from council members, because that would be occurring on a regular ongoing basis. What I'm trying to do is simplify the process so that it would fall strictly with the mayor with input from all council members. What that does, it avoids the mid-year interview process with the elected officials. When we went through that process this year and the interview, I've got to look at what the value was that we got out of that. And I'm thinking that I'm looking at putting discretion into the system so that the mayor would have the ability to follow this process at any time during the term of the council. And sometimes you need to also look at your CAO. So when you look at CAO, you could have an experienced CAO, you could have a rookie CAO, you could have everything in between. You could have, don't take this the wrong way, a CAO that may be contemplating retirement in 10 years. So how much value do you want to put into this process? And the other aspect of this is performance appraisal process has more impact when there's a monetary value attached to it. And the situation that we're dealing with right now is there's not. So we're going through this process. And at the end of the day, it's really just to help staff and council understand what's going on. But I don't think it's something that needs to be done on a yearly basis. The second recommendation is also tied into the staff review. We interviewed the staff 6 months, halfway through the evaluation period. And the staff, they liked the interview process. They certainly preferred it to the written process that they've done previous years. One of the comments and the feedback that I did get was by handing a written document year after year after year, it really loses its impact. Doing it maybe year 2, year 3, or doing it once during the term, it would be conducted at the discretion of the mayor, looking at, logically, is there a reason to do it or not do it? And again, that would be with input from council. And I just, those are the two ways when I looked at how to streamline the process and from a cost perspective, because when you interview 7 people or 8 people, that does drive up your costs, and looking at what value you would get out of it. So again, I'm trying to put discretion into the system so that if you had a rookie CAO where you needed to maybe work on a development plan, you needed to sovereignize them, if I can use that term, and help them interact better with council and senior management staff, I think that's the way to go. When I interviewed some of the senior management team, to be fair, I mean, one individual was there 2 weeks. One individual was there, I think, 8 weeks. And some of them had been there longer. So that's why I've come back at the request of the CAO Performance Evaluation Committee to come back with recommendations to streamline it. These are the two that I've come up with. I can't really see any other way to do it. I cut down on the bureaucracy, I save on time, and I think I save on money doing it this way. But it's really the decision of council.
Thank you very much. To committee, please. Anyone would like to speak to this? Okay, Member Brennan, then Member Burkett, please.
Yeah, thank you.
Could you put your microphone on, please?
You got it.
Thank you.
Mike. I just want to extend a thank you to you. We've traveled this road for some time now.
Yes.
And I firmly believe that you have brought logic, cost effectiveness, and respectfulness to this process with the information you've given us and with your recommendations. And I certainly support 1 and 2.
Thank you, Member.
Thank you through Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Moffat, for all the work that you've done. And I like both recommendations. I just want to hear what the other members of council, how they feel based on what you've written.
Thank you. This is one area I'd like to speak to first, but I'll let the other members go forward. Member McIntyre and then Member Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Moffat. I may be a rogue here, but I'm in favor of number 3. We've signed on to have Mr. Moffat do what he's done, a very marvelous job. However, I think the rest of this term and this council should look at the process the way it's being conducted now. It's a short 2 years term, and then we could review with the new council, whoever they may be, and possibly move to number 2. But I believe that we should just stay the course on this, because we've we hired you, you've been paid, or will be at least, and the process is, it is what it is. I think that number 3, run it to the end and then consider that. And I'd like to hear from other colleagues about if I'm off the rails here or not, but I'd like to see that number 3 be the proposed acceptance.
Through the chair to Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you. Over to Member Taylor and then Member Cox. And then Member Jansen.
Madam Chair, Mr. Moffat was trying to reply to Member
Oh,
McIntyre.
I'm sorry. Is his microphone on? I wasn't able to hear.
Yep.
Thank you. Perfect.
I just wanted to indicate this is an evolving process. You look at where we started, what we wanted to accomplish, and where we are. So the process that we've talked about is in place for this year. And because we can't change midstream, I mean, we're really at the end part. And on a go-forward basis, that discretion is still there. That's all I'm providing is discretion to continue with or not.
Thank you, Member Taylor.
Thank you through the chair. Welcome again, Mr. Moffat.
Thank you.
I tend to agree with Councillor from Ward 5 there. I like the mayor, deputy mayor, and then a third councillor, and we rotate it through as agreed to. And I think leave it as is, and I'm happy with the way that is. Those that aren't on the committee can give feedback to the interviewing committee, and I think it's working great.
Thank you, Member Jansen.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd also like to speak to the practice that we just went through. In the first year on council, I wasn't really sure how to go about the evaluation. I didn't have that experience. And I'd say the experience with you, Mr. Moffat, leading it, it was a lot more comfortable to be able to share and as well be provided with some direction as to, why the information is required to give a good evaluation. So the current practice, I think, is working. And I'm not too sure if I'd be ready to change it.
Thank you. Member Burkett, did you want to speak before I pass the chair? No, Member Cox?
Through the chair. I understand recommendation number 3, which is fine. But I do believe that we don't need, it says you may request a third-party consultant to conduct, which is fine. I could live with 3 or 1, but what I would like something to be put in is at the beginning of each council term that there is an overview on the process of doing evaluations, because not everybody has ever done an evaluation before. And what Mr. Jansen said is very true, is that I had done evaluations, maybe other people have had too, but it is very true that people aren't too sure. But I do like the idea of the mayor, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people probably didn't know a lot of different things what the CAOs do when we have different CAOs, or even this pertinent one we have now. So I believe that with 1, it actually says any feedback from council members to the CAO should be regularly communicated to the mayor, who will communicate them to the CAO. Because the last thing we need is to do an interview at the end of the year or in the middle of the year and have a surprise pop up that no one knew about. So I'm tossed with 1 and continuing on. And for that reason only, because as Mr. Moffat has indicated in his report, that it is the mayor usually who spends the most time with the CAO and knows more about what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Burkett. Oh, sorry, Mr. Moffat.
Sorry, through the chair, if I could respond. So part of the reason for the recommendation was on the point that based on the interviews with the elected officials, there was an admission that from an interaction perspective, some had minimal, some had weekly, and basically when on an escalating scale, it was the mayor that had almost day-to-day interactions with the CAO. So that's why they would be in the best position to recognize the day-to-day performance. That's not to say there wouldn't be other meetings that council would have attended and could provide their feedback. And that's kind of what was in the background of this. The other thing too is when you're looking at, when I referenced county council, they're part-time positions other than the warden. When we look at our council here, they're part-time positions. Most of you have full-time jobs elsewhere unless you're retired like myself, but that's still a full-time job. So I just wanted to respond in that way. And that was the thinking process
And
behind the
excuse,
process.
excuse me, supplemental through the chair. And that's where I was going to, because if you do recommendation number 1, there still is feedback with the mayor. The mayor can meet with each council member and talk to them, right? And get that feedback halfway through and be able to take it forward. And it would be more, how's the word I want to use? It would be more informal, and probably, as we discovered with this type of person to person instead of written, that you get more feedback and more relevant feedback by speaking.
I would use the word current.
Current. Sorry, current. Okay,
No,
but
because
you know
you're-
where I'm
yeah,
going
yeah.
with this is that the having interviews or speaking with people, you get better feedback than just the written, because sometimes you're not sure how to answer that question.
And
Thank you.
people are reluctant to put things in writing.
Okay, thank you. Member Brown.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, your microphone's not on.
Well, I had it on there. So recommendation, I've already said recommendation 1 and 2 make sense to me. Recommendation 3 actually disturbs me. And when we say that we're going to maintain the current policy and yet the mayor can update it, what in the dickens does that mean? Does that mean that he can decide? Does that mean that, does that necessarily mean he's going to have the old board? Because the old way we did it was a gross failure. It was a terrible process that we've tried to change. So when the mayor wants to update it, what does it mean when he went? Because he could update it and say, well, you know what? I think I'll update it and do 1 and 2. What's to stop him?
If I may,
Or to go back to where we were, which is to waste all the money we've spent so far on you. To me, ridiculous.
through the chair, if I may. So what that recommendation mean in number 3? First of all, we're staying with the current process. We've got the form and all that. We put money into that. We've got a process. We've got like the tick boxes. We've got the work plan. That is not changing. There's only 2 things that we can amend, and that is at the discretion of the mayor to determine whether we interview elected officials or and interview senior staff. The decision may be that over the 4 years, we do both, which is following the current process. It may be that we decide to every other year do it. Part of the process I'm trying to avoid is when you sit down and interview staff or you interview council, that process can get stale after a while. That's what happened before when we were providing the worksheet, sit down, fill out the sheet. It got stale. And frankly, I think the senior management team go, here we go again. And I had some of those same comments when I was interviewing the elected officials. I mean, everyone liked the interview process rather than the written part. But that feedback could just have easily been provided throughout the year on a regular ongoing basis. And it should be. You want to know when you've done well in Q1. You don't want to hear about it at the 6-month mark. You don't want to hear when something has gone wrong at the 6-month mark. I mean, I'm sure that the way that things would happen is someone would be spoken to at that point in time. Well, that's all I'm trying to do. It's just, and I'm looking at the bureaucracy that we're creating. But I'm in your hands on this. This is your decision.
Thank you. Okay, Member McIntyre, thank you.
Thank you through the chair. It seems to me that we're of mixed minds here. My thoughts are that we could complete the process that we're in now. We don't necessarily have to review the CIO every week and every month and every year. The last process was painful. It was, to talk about someone you're involved with every day, and if you have a notion to say something unfavorable, it's not, to me, that's that's more difficult. I think the review process that we're in the middle of now, if we complete this process with this elected group, as it is, it can rear its head again with these written reports. I guess clearly my thought is, and my clear thought is, that do we need to review the CAO again during this term? Well, if that's the case, then we can stay with number 3 and just let it go without reviewing the CAO until the next council comes in. I just feel that we're going along nicely and we don't need to review Lori until the next elected group. I'm torn with
Through
it,
the,
really.
through the chair, if I
Thank you.
could respond. If I understand your question, Councillor McIntyre. So the process that's in place now is staying for this year. Okay. You then have the option, if you accept this recommendation, to next year, the final year, to stay with the same process, or I guess change it a little bit, but or not. So for this year, for sure, the process is not changing. I just want to make that clear. We're not making any changements to this year. We're talking about having the ability, though, for the last year council and on a go forward basis to provide discretion to the mayor. Now, you also mentioned about feedback on a daily basis. Feedback is not going to happen on a daily basis with the CAO. There are certain, meetings and point in time when people have the ability to sit down and the mayor would meet with the CAO. That's kind of where these discussions take place. And again, that's all we're suggesting. But again, it's the decision of council.
Mr. Moffat, I'm going to jump in here just for clarification on what you said. When you say this year, what do you mean?
Through the chair. So we're looking at the calendar year. So we got two things. When we're doing the review this year, because we're putting it on a calendar year, the calendar year is January 1, 2024 to December 31, 2024. But because we're doing an overlap, we actually have to go back to July 1st of 2023. And then on a go forward basis, it'll be on an annual basis, Jan 1 to December 31. It's just because of the way the process was developed, there was 6 months that because of the timing that was missed. And to be fair to the CAO, we need to address that period.
So when you said we're going to continue this year, you mean for the next 2 months? Is that what you're meaning?
So through the chair.
Mhm.
Yes. So what I'm saying is we've started the process. We will have the CAO sign off on the final work plan items, and then the form will be sent out to all of the elected officials to fill out, and then we'll come up with a summary form that will go to the Performance Evaluation Committee as it stands now.
Thank you. I've got Member Taylor next. Member Jansen, did you have your card up? Member Taylor and then Member Cox, please.
I'm sorry, the CAO had her hand up. You can't see her.
No,
Sorry.
I can't. Okay, we'll go to the CAO for response.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I understand. So if we continue the process as is for the rest of the year, we just did a 6-month interview with all of staff and all of council. Is that repeated at the end of the year? Because I think that's what the policy requires.
Sorry, I think the CAO is directing that question to Mr. Moffat.
So through the chair, if I may. So part of the process when the elected officials will be provided with a performance evaluation form to fill out, there will be discussions take place at that point in time. If there are any outliers, I guess is the best way I could describe it. I mean, we've had the 6 months check-in. We know where that status is. So if there's anything that sort of has flared, best example I can give you, let's say 2 council members say this has happened and 5 say, no, it hasn't. Then I would sit down and investigate that with the 2 council members to just kind of have a better understanding of why that's occurring. but real no formal interview process would happen again at that point. Unless there's like a red flag and I don't know.
Okay, thank you. So I have member Taylor, then member Cox and member Burkett,
Yeah,
please.
with my experience, being on council and in the private business, there should be some structure. You should know every year how you're making out. So whether we come up, so you can't go a year or two, or no, it should be, every year you're going to be appraised how you're doing and make sure that if promotions are warranted, then your job performance should be equate to that. So this thing wishy-washy, I believe in some structure, and I like the way it's going to finish this term out. That's just my opinion, and I'll let the other members speak.
Thank you, member Cox.
Okay, I'm going to try to help clarify this. If we stay with number 3, the way we are now, what would the performance evaluation look like for 2025? Through the chair to Mr. Moffat.
Through the chair, it would look exactly what we did now.
We would do a midterm.
So if I can take you
Yep,
through it. So
please.
from a time frame, little repetition here. So council has had its strategic direction through its mission vision. So that comes into the approved budget. The approved budget then works its way into the CAO's work plan.
Right.
The CAO's work plan would start Jan 1 approximately. Halfway through the year, we would do interviews with the senior management staff, and we would do interviews with the elected officials, and we would see what comes out of that, if there's anything to report or provide feedback on. Having said that, then we would work towards basically the end of December, probably the middle of December, where the CAO would fill out the form of self-evaluation. We would then send copies to the 7 counselors. They would look at the self-evaluation. They would look at how they would like to fill it out. So you've got the work plan items, and the CAO would score evaluate herself on that. You would have the opportunity to comment on that. And then there is a number of competencies that you've seen in the form. And rather than go through and have a long, elaborate discussion on that, you would just go through and tick off what your scores would be. It would all get put into a summarized document. When we look at the summarized document, I would expect that most of the comments would be similar. If there were comments that were kind of way out there, then part of my job would be to go and have a conversation to understand why and to address that. And then at that point in time, it would go to the performance evaluation committee for their approval.
Okay, here's where you've lost us, or me anyway. I'm not assuming you're going to be here in 2025. I'm assuming we're just going to follow a policy and carry on. I don't know that having a third party is in our policy at this moment. What would happen if we did recommendation number 3? What would 2025 look like? I mean, number 1. Sorry. What would it look like if we went to recommendation number 1 in 2025? What would be the difference?
Okay. So what I see is you're still going to bring in a third party, whether it's me or someone else, to kind of shepherd the process.
Okay, there's where I think we're getting lost. I think we
Right.
thought the mayor was just going to be like a strong mayor
no.
and say,
No, you work, the form is the guts. The
Yep.
form is what focuses everybody on and what takes you through the whole year. Okay. And where I come out of the process is if you decide not to do the interviewing, then I'm not involved in the interviewing, and that's, what's your uncle?
thank you.
Okay, so I have member Burkett, please, next.
You, Madam Chair, and Mr. Moffat, just to elaborate on Member Cox's comment, for recommendation number 1, it would be at the discretion of the mayor only if council came to the mayor and had some concerns that we would interview. Is that correct? Or is that not the way it would work?
Through the chair. Yes and no. It's a terrible answer, but I'm looking at, I think over the 4-year period that you'd want to do interviews of the elected officials and senior management staff at least once, if not twice. What I'm trying to avoid is doing it every year during the 4-year term. Everything else stays the same except for that interview process.
A supplementary, thank you through you, Madam Chair. Now I have a better understanding. To Member McIntyre's comment, we didn't have a policy. Originally, when we started this, it was painful for us all because we actually had a staff member that was doing,
Correct.
as you know. So now we have a policy that's in place. If it's actually for a new CAO that may have been here 1 or 2 years or 3 years, we do need that feedback from council and staff to better understand if that person is doing the job that he or she was hired for.
Yeah.
Today, what we have is a CAO that's in place that's been here for years. If we do have concerns, they can be brought forward to me, or we could just sit down with the CAO and discuss them. We've done the process this year with our staff. And to your point, to interview staff or department heads again becomes redundant, and you'll find that they may not want to be open and as free as they have been before. So I'm happy with number 1 after I have a better understanding of what it actually means.
Member McIntyre, and then I'm going to speak and we'll close the discussion. Thank you.
Through the chair, just a comment. If it's the mayor as the decision maker alone, I'm seeing a possible, if there's a clash between the CAO and the mayor, and one's unhappy with the other. At this time, if we went with number 2, that would be problematic. I think without 3 in the group to make a decision over 1, et cetera, et cetera. If it's just 1, then it's a strong mayor's position, I think. And we're not a big enough municipality for that, I don't feel. I'd still like to stay with number 3 and through the chair, just wait for your comments, and then we should probably move this along. But I think we just stay the course in what we're doing, and then, the new council, whoever they may be next, can decide what they want to do with this evaluation process. The way evaluating the CAO is very hard right now to do in a written form, and that's where we are. But we've got 1 more evaluation. Is that the way I understand it? And that's in the process that we've adopted initially, said for number 3.
Through the chair, if I can clarify that, you have an evaluation for 2024. You will have another full year for 2025. And the process will start all over again in January.
Through the chair, I'm just going to stay with my thoughts on that. Number 3, I'd like to finish what we've started here, and then the new group, whoever they may be, if it could be all the same, who knows? But at this moment, I'm staying with my thoughts on number 3. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll pass the chair, please, so that I can also speak to this and weigh in. I was listening carefully to the discussion, and I was not of the mind, and I'm not of the mind that you, Mr. Moffat, or any consultant would be part of this process of performance of the CAO, which is our only position as a council into the township. So I thought it was to put a new process into place and not to be leading a process ongoing. And that was what the committee of the mayor, the deputy mayor, and 1 other elected official annually on a rotating basis would be. So that's the model that that we created. I am concerned, and I would not support changing the process yet again, which would be my 3rd time in the almost 2 years I've been on council, to yet another modification of this. We do not have enough going forward to make that decision. I don't. based on last year's performance that's not even completed yet, with you leading this new. I do like the papers. I do like the lists that you have in place for us and the process that you've developed. But I think we're qualified and capable to run forward with it. The other thing, there was a comment that you made, and it's in your presentation too, that a performance conversation on an annual, I'm sorry if the members are talking among themselves. There was also a comment about a rookie CAO might be more, it might, the process of a performance conversation on an annual basis might be more valuable, but in my experience, and I still work full-time, that any staff, including the top staff and each, all staff in an organization, receive a performance evaluation annually. And I would be very, very concerned if this township decided that that wasn't necessary. Performance discussions are not meant to correct behavior or, to do any of that. I agree that the mayor is the main liaison with the CAO, and I think that's great. But the formality of a performance, now that we have a process that we can all start to work through and understand and experience together, until we've done that, and I would say finish up 24, which is our first year in this new process that we've paid you to develop for us. 25 would be the second, and I believe I'm still on council through 26. So it's not just 2025 that's remaining. So I think it's incumbent on us. We spend a lot of money on consultants for very good reasons, and this was an awesome process, and it was really good to go through. And then my final comment is that normally, again, I'm only speaking from my experience in another level of government, that annual performance processes do not include interviews or feedback from people who report to the person that you're providing a performance discussion about. So in this case, it would not be that other directors and staff would be part of an annual process, but that collectively the council, as the employer of the CAO, manage that with the CAO. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Winnings. Just in response to any of those comments, is there?
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, just a couple things. When you're asking about, leading the process. So from this performance evaluation process that we've established, I'm not a decision maker. The council is the decision maker on this. I'm just facilitating the process. I want to make that clear. The second thing is the process that we're talking about is a PA is going to be done. No matter what these recommendations, if you accept them, the PA is still staying basically the way it is. We're talking about two things get pulled out of the current process: the interview of elected officials and the interview of the senior management staff. The other comment, if I may, when from an interview process or a PA process, there's something in the HR world we call the 360. And that's where it's quite common to send out to different levels. In this case, we've just gone as far as looking at the senior management team to get a feel. And it's just information that's provided that goes back if there are issues or if there are praises, right? So I just wanted to be clear on that. And the other thing is, in most performance appraisal processes, there's value attached to it. And what I mean by value is two things: from development and learning, and there's usually compensation. So in some municipalities, they've come up with, and I'm just using this as an example, because it gives the performance appraisal more teeth. When a person is at the top of their range and all they're receiving is the cost of living increase, some compensation plans have something what they call a renewable bonus. And so I only mention that because if you're going through this process with the CAO, and you're doing all these interviews. There's no money associated with. She's at the top of her game. Just how involved and how much of a process do you want to have? And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. So subsequent to that, I'm very familiar with the 365, and that's exactly what you're speaking to when you're saying we're going to interview the full circle of people who have an interaction with the position in the course of their work. And that is not part of the performance plan. That's a separate exercise of 365. And I think hello?
Yeah, we have a point of order.
No, apologies. It's not a point of order. I just wanted to bring forward a motion for council to consider because Madam.
Sorry, am I not able to complete my comments?
Yeah, I just wasn't prepared to pass the chair at this point for one more shot. Excuse me, but in all fairness, does any member of this committee have responses to the last dialogue that involved Councillor Mennings and Mr. Moffat? Is there anything?
Sorry, but with all due respect, Chair, I was following up with my question. Everyone else had two opportunities to speak to this. So are you saying I'm not able to speak to this?
No, and I understand you posed your question and Mr. Moffat has answered.
And I had a follow-up, which is my prerogative.
Chair, then I'll pass the chair to you. Okay. Is there a follow-up from any member here? You have a follow-up question? Go ahead.
Sorry, are you speaking to me now?
Yes, Councillor Mennings, if you have a follow-up question.
I did. And
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
my follow-up was about a 365 not being part of a performance discussion. There are two separate things. We do not need to engage staff that report to the CO position annually or throughout a performance year. That is the job of the person, in our case, the council as an entity that the position reports to. So I don't see any further involvement with staff who report to the CAO. I'm very comfortable with having the mayor be the person who conducts, facilitates, I think that was a consultant's word, the annual process. I feel that within our council, the mayor, the deputy, and one other councillor will facilitate that performance discussion among council and with the CAO. I don't see a role for a consultant going forward. My last comment was on the response from Mr. Moffat, thank you, was regarding compensation being attached to performance. That is true if there is a salary range in place normally, such as in unionized environments, for example, but normally with executive positions, it doesn't lessen the value or the process of a performance plan if there isn't a financial. That's not the reason for performance, is a financial gain. It is something that can be awarded in an executive position. So I just wanted to make that clear that we all benefit, regardless of our positions, from a formal process, because then we have something in writing that we can put in our own HR files and be proud of and refer to throughout the year as we're developing our work plan. So, and you also mentioned, Mr. Moffat, cost of living increments. Those are not legislated anywhere in the Employment Standards Act or anything. This township and the council has been very generous in awarding those historically, but that is not an expectation in Ontario. Thank you. That's all I have to say. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. And I'll pass it back. We're going to finish this process and I'll pass it.
Thank you. I think we're going for a motion, please.
We've got one more comment coming forward just before I pass the chair. I'll let you know.
Okay, through the chair. The first thing I have a a worry if we don't have a consultant, that puts one of our staff members in a place, which we were in that pickle before we came into this process. And that is why we had Mr. Moffat. The other one I want to speak to is it is valuable to have senior management interviewed at least once a term, because they are the people who work with the CAO at all times. This whole process between council and that is not the same as a government job, which I have and lots of people had, or any job. The whole idea of this is we do not see and work with, the CAO on a daily basis. So some of us may not even talk to her except for 2 meetings a month. Some of us may talk to her more. So we need to have the daily input from the senior management staff, because this is a whole different ballgame than our jobs were out in the other world we had. So, and I think the value is we learn from that and we discuss it. So I'm sticking with number 1 because it's basically the same as number 3. And the only difference is deputy mayor and 1 member of council won't be on a committee, but we will all be consulted. Thank you. And by the way, the CEO had her hand up too.
Thank you. So we'll go to the CEO and then we will, I'll call the vote and ask for a motion, please.
I'm confusion about process here. I still have the chair.
No, I finished speaking and I'm the chair.
All right, you can have it back then.
I took it back. Thank you so much for helping.
I was hoping that I would get to comment because I couldn't there. I just want to make one comment.
Sorry, we've got the CAO and then I've called the vote.
Sorry, through the chair, Member Cox actually covered my concern. I had heard a couple of times that you don't need a consultant, but if you don't, then that leaves HR facilitating your process, which we determined last year was inappropriate. So whatever changes you make, I think you still need a third party to facilitate it for you.
Thank
Vote having been called by Madam Chair, I'm going to put a motion out that I'm doing my best to try and feel my way through the middle of this conversation. So the motion reads that administration report number A24-033, this chief administrative officer performance review process updates be received. And further that the current process remain in place for the balance of the current term. And further that a CEO review orientation session be held at the start of every term to familiarize the new council with the review process. And further that any changes to the process be referred to the new council.
Thank you. And may I have a recorded vote before I ask for a mover? Okay, I see some hands up. Member Cox and then Member Burkett.
Through the chair, I just wanted to clarify, if we do number 3, we still have third party. Through the chair to the clerk.
As a result of this motion, there's no changes from any of the things in the report coming forward. The current process stays as is,
Yep.
unamended
Okay.
going forward. The recommendations with any future changes would be shelved to the new council.
Thank you, Member Burkett.
Through you, Madam Chair, could you, I need to see that motion, please. If we can, please, Madam Clerk.
And while we're waiting for that motion to be posted, thank you for that, Member Burkett. I'll ask for a recorded vote on this motion too. Thank you.
Why would you smile? Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member Taylor, seconded by Member McIntyre. Okay, we'll ask for a recorded vote, please.
I have a question.
Sorry, and can you put your microphones on because we can't hear?
A question.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I just have a
Yes.
question.
Sure.
Fine with this motion that we're going to carry on and do the same thing that we did this year? Is that what
Yes.
we're voting on?
Yes,
The same thing?
same thing, no changes.
Okay.
Okay. Recorded vote request, so I will reread the motion. So the motion reads that administration report number 824-033, Chief Administrative Officer Performance Review Process updates be received. And further that the current process remain in place for the balance of the current term. And further that a CAO review orientation session be held at the start of every term to familiarize the new council with the review process. And further that any future changes to the process be referred to the next council. Recorded
Thank-
vote by member Minnings. Member Minnings for or against?
For.
Member Cox for or against?
Against?
Member McIntyre for or against?
Or.
Thank you. Member Burkett for or against?
Against?
Member Jansen for or against?
For.
Okay, member Taylor for or against?
For.
Member Brennan for or against? Okay, I believe that's everyone. Motion's carried. Madam Chair, I believe we've requested a 5-minute bio break.
Oh, thank you. I was just saying the same thing with my microphone off. So is it 5 minutes or 10 minutes, clerk?
5.
Thank you. to resume the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, our next agenda item is F.1 Recreation and Facilities. It's actually F1.1. It's the Recreation Report number R24-019, update and tendering status of West Shore Recreation Facility. And I'll ask Director Craig Belfry to please speak to this item.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start off the report and then I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Newman for the technical details. Before you, you have a report on the update and tendering process for the West Shore Recreation Facility. We have an options report before you to look at a few different options as we're nearing the process to be ready for tender. We've done our test wells. They've come back positive. The facility has been registered as a zero carbon building in its design standards. We do have an estimated pricing in from Chamberlain Architects on the facility. We're not that surprised by that price coming in. And we have applied for 2 grants to date, one to the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program for $10,300,000 and another one to the Community Support and Recreation Infrastructure Fund in the amount of just over $5 million. So I'll pass over to Mr. Newman now for the technical details.
Through the chair, and good morning. So Craig touched on there, we are now registered as a zero carbon build design V3 with the Canada Green Building Council. And we did have good results from our test wells that were completed on site. The original plan was to drill down to a depth of approximately 700 feet. When they hit 500 feet, they ran into black granite, which is actually a very good conductor for thermal transfer. So they've amended the design slightly, and the plan is to add a few more wells at that depth of 500 feet rather than 700. It would be more expensive to go deeper. And Craig mentioned the grants that we've applied for. We're looking at approximately 11.6 million for the building for construction. That doesn't include contingency or contract administration or non-rebate HST. We're at about 14.2 million right now, budget forecasting for that. We should highlight too, this is a Class C estimate, and the margin of error could be approximately 25% either way based on that. So option one, the direction we're looking for council here today, option one would be we get ready for a pre-qualification of general contractors. We would likely commence that in the new year. And then the contractors who are pre-qualified would then be given the invitation to bid on that project. Pre-qualification ensures that you have a general contractor capable of doing a project like that. You interview them, check their references, make sure they've done a project of that nature before. And upon that, if we were to proceed with option one, we would also move and go for our building permit. And I believe when we pull that building permit, we are to be showing progress about 4 months after we've been issued that, and they can be revoked if not. We would anticipate the project commencing in the spring of 2025. And it's important to, we really should proceed with option one if staff are in a position that they are comfortable to award the project. And option two, we would await the results of the funding opportunities that we pursued from both the federal and the provincial government. We wouldn't be able to go for our building permit at that point. I believe we would continue to get the project tender ready and finalize the drawings. But just something to note with option two, there is potential. We're aware of changes to the Ontario Building Code coming in the new year. The changes haven't been released yet, but they are anticipating changes in regulations for seismic things. And I've chatted with our building department here. They're not completely aware of the nature of
what they will be, but there is potential for additional design changes that may be required if we wait. So there is a draft budget of 15 million included in the draft 2025 budget. The sources of funding were still to be determined in that budget. And I would happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, Member Burkett, please.
Thank you through Madam Chair to Colt. Thank you for the report and all the work that Craig, you and your team have done. The 24 wells that, where did I read that? Is that how many we'd have to drill? A set of 24 wells at the depth of 500 feet. So we'd have to drill 24 to become totally green?
Through the chair to Mayor Mike. That is correct. That was designed by the mechanical engineer, and they've modeled the building, and that is the amount of wells that they would need to fuel the heat pumps in the building.
So supplementary, if I may, through you, Madam Chair. So the price of those wells is included in the construction. It's all included in that price as well? Yes.
Through the chair to Mayor Burkett. That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Member Taylor, please.
Yeah, through the chair to Colt there. I know we've gone into the wells and things, but what about, I've seen the ones where you run pipe 6 feet or 8 feet down and they go over a huge area and you put a refrigerant or something in that. Why wouldn't we have gone to that versus going down 500 feet with 24 wells? Because I would assume each well going to have a pump on it, and unless, or you can tell me what makes this one better than the tubing, and I'll have another question after that.
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor, that was investigated, a horizontal loop field before. It could cause conflict if we were to expand the building potentially. Right now, these vertical well fields are to be located in the parking lot, and we don't believe that we have the real estate to do a horizontal well field on that property. And also the amount of heat transfer that you're going to get in a horizontal well field would be nowhere near how much you would get 500 feet deep in the ground.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You have a supplementary question you mentioned?
Yeah, if I can go through the chair again. So we haven't seen a final drawing, because I think the last time we spoke, we've going to put a second level on a walking track, but we haven't seen that. And just in my opinion, I like option 2. There are some risks there, and let's get all our ducks in line before we go into this, which is the follow-up question to Mr. Plunkett. If we did go to option 2, does that mean we're committed to going to spend $15 million, whether we've got it or not? And how would we ever fund this project?
Thank you through the chair to Member Taylor. Funding it is definitely an issue. I would suggest that staff are more supportive of doing it if we can get a substantial grant to help us do it. We do have some money already built up in development charges, but it's approximately 2.6 million. So that's quite, and it's quite shy of the actual cost to build at this point in time. The other option is we can look at, we could look at debt financing as well, but if we do fund it from reserves, it is a very significant hit to our reserves in a single year as well.
And just one other final question, if I could, Madam Chair, and this is to whoever can speak. If we go with putting tenders out, are we committed to proceeding with the project? Is that means we're in? But you're saying the risk is maybe the building permit could be revoked. Is there any other, are we committed for the project if we went with option 1?
Through the chair to the member, the risk that you have if we go to tender and then don't award, like we have the option not to award, but if we come back in a calendar year, we could be perceived as bid shopping, which could create issues, legal issues for us.
Thank you very much. Member McIntyre and then Member Brennan, please.
Thank you through the chair to Mr. Newman. You made a comment about plus or minus 25%. Can you go over that again just to give me get a little clarity on what that could possibly be?
Through the chair to Councillor McIntyre. So this is based on a Class C estimate. So a Class D estimate can have a plus or minus of approximately 50%. It's more of a comprehensive general estimate put together. A Class C estimate, we have a general idea of our expenses, and we're looking to tighten these estimates up even further before tender period. But right now, that's the estimate in hand while they continue to finalize our mechanical design based on the geothermal well field.
Thank you. Supplementary question. From your experience, what's the likelihood we're going to be either near zero or plus? Is what frightens me a little bit. So, of course, we'd be happy to be under the estimate, but what's the likelihood from your experience, Cole?
Through to the chair to Councillor McIntyre. We can't predict the market. It depends on the time of year you tender. You may have people hungry for work who put in a good price. You may have contractors who aren't looking for too much work. It depends on the time of year. And I think that's partially why we brought this project back, because if we do get a source of funding, we likely need to tender as soon as possible, right? It's tough to say. It's tough to predict the market. The 20% is, it could go either way. It could go cheaper. It could go more expensive.
Final comment. So therefore, if we are waiting on funding and move forward, getting permits and so on into place, what's the likelihood we could slow play it, waiting for the money? Is that possible, or is that not conceivable?
Through the chair to Councillor McIntyre, I think because we don't know when we would be received with results of the grants, it's tough to predict. Typically, they're between 6 to 12 months, but it would definitely impact when we're able to tender and when we're actually able to break ground.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Member Brennan, please.
I think my question's answered. Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions before I pass the chair and request to speak? No? Okay. Member Brennan, if you don't mind chairing while I ask my question, thank you.
Then proceed with your question.
Thank you very much. And thank you to staff for bringing this report forward. The West Shore Rec Center is indeed how I got involved in council way back in 2016 from a resident lens. My concerns have actually been heightened since hearing Mr. Plunkett's response and the other responses. The 25% cost adjustment either way on what's currently estimated at about a $15 million project feels like a high risk position on a very high price tag recreation center that once we go forward with it, and I am pro rec center in the township, I just don't think that this is the right time to do it because we don't have our grant secured. And I think that it would absolutely devastate township residents and our financial position if we went forward and moved forward with potentially holding the entire price tag, which could be as high as 15 million plus another 3 million. So we'd be at about a $20 million build. That doesn't include the infrastructure around the recreation center. And once we have that very short window for the building permit of 4 months to move forward, we're talking about sidewalks. We're talking about roads that are walkable. We're talking about connecting streets and the grounds, and then not to mention staffing it, paying for the heat and hydro and whatever the operating costs are. So it's not just a capital expense. We're looking at a commitment for the life of this building. So I don't see the urgency today to go ahead and make that commitment. I think it wouldn't be prudent. And from my lens, I think it's the wrong way to go to write what potentially feels like a bit of a blank check. I think waiting for the grants is a responsible way to go, and it would give more comfort as far as future tax increases in trying to pay for this this building. So the other thing that Mr. Plunkett mentioned, he stated that funding is definitely an issue and staff are more supportive if we had some money, like some grants secured. And with only $2 million in the kitty for this project, I just don't see the urgency, and I would love to wait the 6 or 9 months or 12 months to see what the grants are and then move forward. And we can all be very proud of moving forward and get the whole community behind us too. I think from the comments I've had from 4 or 5 residents who follow this West Shore very closely after seeing the budget or this agenda posted, is that the timing is wrong. So I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I will take back the chair now. Thank you. Member McIntyre, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I guess to you, Chair. It seems to me that you want the money in place before you go forward, and if that takes time, you would rather have money from the upcoming budget allocated to road, sidewalks, and other things in your area. Have I got that right?
Thank you. Yes, and I think I've waited more than 5 years, as long as have many of you and the residents of West Shore, for moving forward on this. I think once we go forward with tenders, I'm concerned that we could be seen as bid shopping. And I think that the cost of waiting, even knowing that I believe it was the Ontario Building Code could have some changes coming forward, I think whatever cost those changes might be to our capital project would be less than holding the whole bill for an entire rec center if we received 0 grants. So I think it's better that we get the grants, whatever they are. And hopefully, I'm really hoping that we get all the grant money that we've applied for. We're certainly deserving of that. And going forward on that. And then whatever the building code costs, if any, based on future changes that no one knows, what they may or may not be, I think then we can easily absorb those. And that would be the more financially prudent way to go. Thank you.
Just a supplementary comment. I agree that I'd rather have a bird in the hand, know what kind of money we have to spend on the project. So I'd probably be leaning to option 2. Thank you.
Okay, Member Cox, you had your speak up. Thank you.
Just to be the devil's advocate. So what if we don't get grants? Do we carry on with this, or is it something we just say no? And I'm asking the ward council.
My opinion, thank you, Member Cox, for that question. My opinion for right now is that what we know today to make an educated and informed vote that doesn't financially jeopardize the township, is that today we turn this down as far as moving forward, and we wait to see what grants are available. So I'm not saying no to a future rec center, but there are grants that come up throughout the year. And I think we've spent, I forget how many $1 million. Well, it's been over $1 million anyway, on the testing, on getting our building registered as a zero carbon building. We are ready to go. But I cannot, in good faith, say that we need to make this decision today. And that was my statement, is that there is no urgency today to
No.
move this project forward.
Through the chair, that's not what I asked. I'm just saying to you, if we don't get these grants, because chances could be very slim, we've been not very lucky already. Is this something that if we find out in a year that we don't get these grants and the way the would the people of West Shore still want the facility?
Well, thank you. And I thought I answered that. So if we don't get these grants, my answer was that I believe that there will be other grants coming forward. And it's not a facility just for the people of West Shore, is my understanding, that it was also an emergency evacuation hub along the Highway 11 corridor, and that other residents across the wards would also be using this facility. So I think that the residents of West Shore, based on the few that have contacted me, certainly we haven't gone to a community referendum. We don't hold any community meetings to get feedback across the township, but looking at a potentially $20 million price tag for a capital project is not something we should go forward with without 1 cent of grant money at this point in our bank account. I don't think we can afford it right now. Member Brennan.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I'm going to speculate that if we ever do get a grant, it isn't going to be for 15 million bucks. It'll be for maybe 4, 5, at which point we're going to have to make a pretty big decision. I think it's extremely unlikely that someone's going to give us the whole pot. So at some point in the not too distant future, in my considered opinion, we're going to have to make a $10 million decision. That's what I see coming. Now, if we went with option 1, using reserves that we have, i.e. the money that we have now, and there was a year or 2 separation between that construction effort and the main build, is there a way to maintain, would that cause grief in terms of the quality of the work that's already done? Is it like an oil well? Can you cap it and say, you know what, we're going to leave it for a year or so and then we'll get to it? What risks would be associated with getting the ball rolling from a construction, viability point of view?
Through the chair to Councillor Brennan, this it's not a project that you can really do in stages.
Okay.
This rec center, the building is serviced already. There's already been work to prepare that site to construct the facility. I don't think there is anything that you could phase for this type of a construction project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Taylor?
Yeah, just in closing, my thoughts on this, that we should go with option 2. We'd be irresponsible not to see what funding's out there. And basically, $15 million saddled on the township is unrealistic. We've got a really tough budget. We're going to find out Thursday and Friday. And I would definitely go with option 2 at this point.
Okay, thank you. Member Cox, and then we'll ask for the motion to be read, please. Thank you.
Excuse me, I think we had Member Burkett had his card up before me.
Through you, Madam Chair, I know this, it's virtual and you're the chair, but I don't know how many times I've had my card up and you haven't seen it. I don't know if it really works that well. Maybe we should have a discussion later as well as to whether or not, if we're virtual, we actually chair and have the vice chair in the chambers actually chair it. And no disrespect to you, Madam Chair. So having—
Thank you. Sorry, no disrespect at all. And the only time I can't see the council table, Member Jansen and I, the only time we can't see it is when it's the camera's focused on one of the staff speaking. Otherwise, we can see it, and I always give a thumbs up to acknowledge that the cards have been up. So my apologies that the camera wasn't on you when you had your card up.
So, point well taken. I too struggle with that $15 million price tag, but I go back to, this has been 12 years that we've been trying to build this facility. And I hate to guess what that piece of property is worth. It was transferred to us through the developer, probably into the millions of dollars. We have a member of council that's a realtor that probably could tell me the price, and we spent oodles of dollars on it. I'm happy to wait for 6 months to see if we get any funding, but at that point, this council will need to make a decision as to what we need to do. Because leaving it, because we could have built it 4 or 5 years ago for $7 million. Fast forward today, it's doubled, and it will double again. Your ward is the largest ward. It's the ward that has nothing, no main street. You'll never be able to put a main street on it. There has to be something there for our residents. Shame on us if we do not provide them with that service. And then looking at the weather and what's coming forward with hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding, we have nothing for our residents in that side of the township. It would be our responsibility as a council and a township to provide that service. So I'll just leave that thought with you.
Thank you. Just subsequent to Member Burkett, are you suggesting that then that we have something added to a motion that says it comes back to council to make a decision at a certain point in time in 2025?
I think through you, Madam Chair, thank you for that. I think we'll wait to have our staff. I'm sure they'll hear in the queue whether or not we've been successful. And at that time, they can bring it back and we can make that decision.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Member Cox?
Yes, that was my question on, we will wait for the grant. I don't have a problem waiting for the grant. I think that's fiscally responsible. But I really believe that all of us have to really take a strong look and figure out what we're going to do, because I don't believe we're going to get a lot of grants, and I'd be really surprised if we got one. I really hope we would, but the amount of people, the amount of municipalities that are applying for this grant, I mean, I'll bet you out of the 444 municipalities in Ontario, 300 are probably all applying because they're afraid there's not ever going to be anything again. We missed the bus the first time, so we have to be prepared for the second time. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Taylor, please.
Yeah, through the chair, just in closing, I would go with option 2 and ask for a recorded vote.
Thank you very much. And before I ask for the motion to be read, just based on the last 2 comments, has me thinking, I know that a delegation from council went to the AMO conference in August and spoke to someone in the province about this grants or funding, and as part of a delegation. No, I'm seeing the deputies shake their head. So is there anything that we could do in the interim regarding reaching out to even our MPP, and have we done that? It's just a question, to keep this project and the need for it, because it is a need, front and center. Is that something that is being done, or that we could do in the interim while we're waiting for an answer? And either the CO or the clerk will have their hand up. Thank you.
Director Belfry.
Oh, Director Belfry. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to let committee know that we have requested a delegation at Roma with the Minister of Sport, Minister Lumsden. So we'll hear back a week before Roma whether we're successful in getting a delegation.
Thank you very much, Director. That's the additional information I was hoping for. Okay, may I ask for the motion to be read, please?
Question.
Sorry, I have a question.
Okay.
When we applied for grants, did we not get letters of support from different people in the community?
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor Cox, that is correct. We did. We did receive some from Chief Williams, We received one from our MP at the federal government. I do not believe we received one from our MPP from Simcoe North.
Thank you very much.
Okay, may I ask for a motion to be read, please?
Yes, so the motion reads that Recreation Report R24-019 dated November 27th, 2024, with respect to update and tendering status of the West Shore Recreation Facility be received. And further, that council provides direction to staff to proceed with option 2 with regards to tendering of the West Shore Recreation Facility.
Thank you. May I have a mover? A mover? Okay, moved by member Jansen. Thank you. And seconded by member Cox. And all in favor?
No, I believe we had a request
Oh,
for.
I'm sorry. Yes, you go ahead. Sorry.
Recorded vote requested by member Taylor. So member Taylor for or against?
For.
Okay, member Burkett for or against?
For.
Member Cox for or against?
For.
Member Jansen for or against?
4.
Member Brennan for or against?
For.
Member Minnings for or against?
4.
Member McIntyre for or against?
For.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to staff for that report. We are moving on to item F 2.1, Public Works Report number W24041, Drinking Water Quality Management System, the management review. And I ask Anthony Druin, our Superintendent of Utilities, to present your report, please.
Thank you, through the chair. As part of Ontario Safe Drinking Water Act, it's mandatory that we report as information the management review minutes to council. So they've been attached to your report. It is regulated that we do report them to council each and every time. We try and do them twice a year, which you'll see twice a year. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you. Over to committee, please, for questions. If I can have the camera scan to the committee table.
Yeah, over. Hopefully it'll switch now.
There we go. Okay, thank you very much. Member Taylor?
Through the chair to Tony, it's great to see 2 years, 100% compliance. Well done. I have 2 questions. Why does West Shore have the most maintenance? Since that's the newest system, why are there most work orders there? That's my first question.
Through the chair, it's just surely because of the size of it. It's the highest population, it's the largest plant, so it has more moving parts that we have to check and maintain.
And the last thing is just the complaints, that basically it's only a handful of complaints that we see, but you hear more complaints on the street. But basically, you're happy with the number of complaints in the 2 areas with Coldwater and all the other water systems?
Through the chair, we'd like to see 0 complaints, obviously, but they are very low, the complaints, and a lot of times they're maintenance related, and they really have nothing to do with the drinking water itself. It could be caused by hot water tanks and stuff like that, frozen lines over the winter.
Thank you. And just in closing, after visiting the water system there, and based on the results, the reports, you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Burkett, please.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, just want to echo Member Taylor's comments. Tony, you make us look good by keeping us all safe. So thank you very much for everything that you do, you and your staff.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, seeing no more questions, may I have a motion, please?
Motion reads that Public Works Report number W24-041 dated September 11th, 2024, with respect to drinking water quality management standard management review be received as information.
Thank you very much. And do I have a mover? Moved by member Jansen, seconded by member Taylor. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Druin. We are moving on to F 2.2, Public Works Report number W24-042, 2025-037, award of consulting engineer services for West Shore water and wastewater treatment plant optimization. And I would ask Colt Newman, our manager of capital projects, and Derek Burke, our director of public works, to speak to this report, please.
Through the chair, thank you. We've brought a consulting engineering award here today to council. So operational challenges at the West Shore wastewater treatment plant have highlighted the need for further investigation into plant operations. So Ainley and Associates was retained to identify these hydraulic bottlenecks within the West Shore wastewater treatment plant. They came up with a scope of work of upgrades that needed to be completed to the wastewater treatment plant to allow the plant to treat the peak flows that it has trouble handling on high flow days. A scope of, I said that. The new plant infrastructure proposed would also be sized to accommodate a future expansion of that plant. So we do intend to undertake a a Schedule C Class EA for expansion of the plant. So the equipment that would go here would be sized in mind with additional trains that would be installed at that plant. Another update on this, we made an application to the Housing Enabling Water Systems Grant in the amount of $7.8 million. And again, we're not sure when we would know about that. But so an RFP was issued back in September. We received 7 proposals, I should say, on that. They were evaluated based on best value, considering both the technical proposal and their financial fees proposed. And upon evaluation, Ainley was the highest ranking proponent and their recommended award of this engineering contract. So there was an engineering budget approved back at Committee of Corporate Services on August 28th and further ratified by council. And we are here seeking approval of this engineering contract. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for that. Member Burkett, please.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I'm fully supportive, and thank you for the report, Derek and Colt, of the 473. Regarding the 7.8 million, is this the proper forum to ask, or should we wait until budget tomorrow to get clarity for council as to where we go with the expansion of the plant based on Ainley's recommendation?
Member Burkett, Director Burke.
Thank you, through the chair. And yes, the mayor and I have similar last names. I think it is a good forum to talk about how do we move this project forward. So today's report talks about the engineering costs and the award of that contract, but ultimately engineering is only as good as the project that becomes of it, and that is $8 million, and it's in the imminent need. So we will be presenting that as part of the 2025 budget. The funding source is anticipated to be development charges. 100%, and development charges in that area hasn't collected fully that value, which is a lot of the reason we have put forward multiple applications to grant to get some grant funding on this project. To be clear, this is only to rectify a deficiency in the existing plant. The existing plant doesn't meet the rated ECA, the license values, and we want to bring that up to that value. There will be an entirely new project also planned for design of an EA, the municipal class environmental assessment, to expand beyond that. So it's a two-phased approach. It keeps the ability to accommodate growth consistent by upgrading the existing plant to its rated, and then again expanding the plant in the next 10 years.
Thank you. Supplementary through you, Madam Chair, if I may. So just to we know that West Shore's growth is coming and the new homes that are coming, and there is only one developer. And if we lay all this money out now, they may not develop those homes for 10 years. So is there a mechanism that would allow the developer to pay for the expansion now and somehow through DCs refund them that money rather than us fronting the money at this stage?
If I can, through the chair to the mayor, there's certainly an opportunity to do that. They would have to look at it to see if for them, it all depends on how quickly they expect to build as to whether, because they're going to receive, if they paid for it up front, they would receive money back from us when DCs are collected. And so it ultimately comes down to a business decision. Can they collect those DCs back fast enough to make it a wise business decision for themselves? But it also puts, I should say, it also puts more of a, I would say, an incentive in their hands to build faster.
So supplementary, if I may, through you, Madam Chair, to Andrew, are we mandated to provide the service for them if we don't have capacity? Can we make them front that money rather than having our money used for the next 10 years, should it take 10 years to build out what they need to do?
Tougher question, because that's, I would say we are not necessarily mandated to do it, but the province has certainly got growth requirements for the township. And without the expansion, we can't meet those growth targets.
So supplementary to you, Madam Chair, if I may. So is this, and I know we can talk about it more at budget, but is this a legal question that we would have to get from our lawyers to see where we're at? Because I'm not in support of spending millions of dollars on a developer that now may take 10 years to build out of our money, of our taxpayers' money.
Sure.
Thank you through the chair.
Sorry.
I think there's two separate questions. What we're looking for right now is approval for an upgrade that manages a current problem. So we need to get moving on that. The bigger issue, the bigger upgrade is development funded. As you'll remember, we're at the OLT for mediation, and that will come back at some point in closed session, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in general, developers can be asked to front-end agreements, and we have no requirement to have servicing available. No different than the public meeting or the Public Information Center that was here before you last week. They're looking for development approval, but mentioned that they'd have to put a hold on their zoning because they can't actually develop until they have the capacity. So nothing mandates the municipality to provide capacity. If the developers want it, they will have to come to the table and help us with some of the funding.
Thank you. Through Madam Chair, if I may, thank you for that explanation. And I'm happy to support the motion as it's written. But I just wanted council to have some clarity as we move forward regarding the huge figure to upgrade the plant.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Member Taylor and then Member Cox, please.
I think you were first, though.
Oh.
Through the I would assume through the chair to Derek that we will be talking about what the mayor was talking about at our master servicing plan. Or is it in budget? Just a question. I would prefer to see the whole picture. I don't know.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, definitely two ways of talking about it in the near future. Servicing master plan is going to look at the township-wide approach to servicing, having available service lands as per the official plan, and how we're going to achieve that. So that'll build the full conversation of what are our next steps. This report just happens to be one of those steps.
No, but excuse me, supplemental through the chair is what I meant is if we look at it as a whole, because there are developers sitting in Coldwater probably waiting also. And so that would be almost the same as the developers from West Shore to look at that big picture. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Member Taylor.
Through the chair to Colt or Derek. So in the financial considerations, you've got 780,000 approved for engineering. So what's involved in that number and what's left after this, just for interest? And then I'll follow up.
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor, that was an original tentative number approved at a previous committee. Now, it's good to have additional money for contingency on an engineering contract and to not have to come back to have change orders approved all the time like that. But I believe that is the live budget right now.
Okay, thank you. And I would agree with what the mayor said, that we have to do this to bring us up to the capacity, and we should approve it today.
Thank you very much. Member McIntyre, please.
I also agree with the mayor. If we could hold off, the homes aren't flying off the for sale list over there. They're you don't know what the next phase of their things. It's not going to be affordable housing. You can bank on that. So I agree with Member Burkett that if we could get them to pay for it rather than our parting with the money, I'd be pleased to see that. So I have to agree with Member Taylor and Member Burkett.
Thank you very much. I also agree with Member Burkett, and thank you for raising that question. My question is regarding the trouble currently handling high water days. So it's twofold. One, is that a cause of the smell complaints and the smell that we routinely hear about in that area? Is that a result of the trouble handling high water days? And my second question is regarding the size of the West Shore Water and Treatment Plant. And just for my own clarification, it was my understanding, I thought that the plant was built to handle all the future development that was planned and known in West Shore.
Through the chair, I don't believe the source of smell would be occurring on a high flow day. There'd be lots of diluted water. It's mostly storm runoff that would be coming through the plant. I don't believe it would be accurate to say that the source of smell would be from a high flow day. Now, you had another question, I believe, on the capacity of the plant. I think a lot of plants in Ontario have found that with, we had very steady population growth for a long time, and then a lot of development came around the pandemic, and a lot of plants around Ontario have found that they're also not able to meet their rated capacity. And when you're running a plant steady for so long, and they're doing these desktop evaluations for what your plant can actually meet its capacity, and you hear from the operations staff, they're aware of how their plant runs, and now this is why a lot of municipalities are actually doing stress tests on their plants to see what capacity they can actually meet with all of the development underway in the province.
Thank you. And then my last question would be, is there a risk to the users of that water system currently with the discovery of what Ainsley and Associates has recommended and what we'll be voting on as far as work that needs to be done? Is there any risk?
Through the chair, there's no immediate risk. There's obviously the potential of sewer backups if hydraulically we can't get all of the flow to the plant, but there's no risk immediately today. Thank you.
Thank you. And seeing no more questions, I'll ask our clerk to read the motion, please.
Thank you. Motion reads that Public Works Report number W24-037 dated November 27th, 2024, with respect to award of consulting engineering services for the West Shore wastewater treatment plant optimization be received. And further that the proposal from Ainley Group in the amount of $474,332, excluding HST, be accepted.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking for a mover. Moved by Member Taylor and seconded by Member Brennan. All in favor, please. And carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we are moving on to our finance report, F 3.1. It's administration report number C 24-005, sole source procurement, project management service, town suite implementation. And I'll look to Andrew Plunkett, our Director of Finance and Treasurer, for presenting that report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report today is actually to request council to approve project management services to help us complete the implementation of the Town Suite Municipal ERP. Now, it says it's certainly taken us a while to get the implementation completed. A lot of the implementation to date, though, we've been able to run parallel with our current system. And it's still taking a significant amount of time. One of the reasons, staff is required to get the implementation done, but almost on the side of their desk, so on top of their regular duties. But some of the modules that have not been started yet, we do not have a system in place for those now. So they are ultimately modernizing the service that the township would provide, and they will be built from scratch. So they're going to be much more difficult to manage off the side of your desk. The implementation, of course, has taken, as most of you know, it's taken about 3 years to where we are now. And it has moved significantly faster over the last year. We do have the finance module up and running. We do have a customer service e-services module that has been running for several months now. We do have the 311 customer service requests module, which we are very hopeful is operational before the end of the year. They are currently working on getting payroll implemented. That is one of the areas that we are certainly interested in getting done sooner, because we'd like to be able to start the new year fresh. It does make it significantly easier if you're only running one system to run payroll for the year, especially for year-end reporting requirements. The consultant that we're asking to sole source the project for does come recommended from one of our neighboring municipalities, who is also in the middle of implementing a new municipal software solution. Not the same one that we are doing, but they are experts in the field of project management, especially related to implementations of this nature. And they do have expertise that our staff doesn't have, because they are also capable of assisting the developers with the programming of the software, which is something that we certainly as staff do not have. And then I'll open the floor to council.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Over to members of council. Member Cox, please.
I agree. I think we should get these consultants in and get this going and be finished with it and provide the service. I have no problem with it at all. The funding is, we have the money for it, and it'll just make everything work better, as you've spoken to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Member Burkett, please.
Thank you through Madam Chair. So Andrew, the modules that are remaining, which ones are they?
So as I said, there is the 311 service request, which is very close. We want to say that payroll is close, but it is getting close. It's not quite there. We have the tangible capital assets module, which will help us with asset management going forward. It is very close to being completed, but there are modules, work orders, land management, which actually includes, all of the functions of the building department, all of the functions of the planning department, which can be, they will be able to take the processes and modernize them, so we have a solution to help us track and, effectively keep track of and manage the processes of those departments through a solution, as opposed to just having to do it manually.
Supplementary, if I may, through you, Madam Chair. So this module, is it got a longevity date? Like, will it expire after so many years, or when a new program comes out? Or is this something that we can use for the next 5, 6, 7?
If I can, through the chair to the mayor. Typically, if this was certainly a finance solution, I would say, we're likely going to be good for a decade. I would expect we would be good for a decade. And I'll want to say that to date, I am certainly hoping that they are able to provide us a solution we can use for at least a decade. Going into this, full expectations is this solution would last us for at least a decade. Can I guarantee that this one in particular will? I cannot, but that is certainly the hope.
Okay, thank you. Through Madam Chair, I'm happy to support this as well.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, I do have one question, please. I realize that staff would like to single source and award this contract directly to a consultant, but the consultant that you've chosen and you're asking us to approve does not have town suite experience or expertise, perhaps. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be better served, since when council approved the purchase of town suite, it was my understanding that that was a package software that would be easily implemented and user-friendly. So I understand, and I'm just supposing there's a lot of frustration from staff too, that they're not able to be at the point where they would have hoped to make their jobs easier using this great software. So I'm wondering if the township shouldn't cast a wider net for a consultant that does have town suite expertise, so that we can move more quickly on this.
Okay. The chair can't see me, but through the chair, Town Suite is a very new solution in Ontario, so there aren't consultants that have that familiarity. This particular one has familiarity with a wide base, and they're essentially reasonably the same. What we liked about this one in particular was having a lot of success helping another municipality through some implementation challenges. But because we're implementing the next steps are to implement things that we don't have. So workout order management, better tracking and planning and building. In addition to their software implementation experience and their computer programming, which is half the problem, is I think we don't speak the software language and the software people don't speak our language. So that's a bridge. But the big selling point for me on this particular consulting was they have a background in process review. They're black belts in Lean Sigma, and they're going to look at our processes. So on the finance piece, it was relatively simple because we were replicating things. In this case, we don't want to be replicating. This is how we keep our spreadsheets. This is how we've always done things. We want someone that looks at the processes and sees how we can use the software capacity to do things more efficiently. So that's a long-winded answer to say this person we think brings a lot of extra to the table, and the expert you're looking for on Town Suite unfortunately isn't here because they don't have a lot of clients in Ontario.
And if there are no more questions, let's ask for the motion to be read, please.
Motion reads that Administration Report C-24-05 dated November 27th, 2024, regarding a sole source procurement project management services Town Suite implementation be received, and that council approves the sole source procurement of the project management services Town Suite implementation to WSCS Consulting Inc. at a cost of $70,454, including non-refundable HST to be funded via the Modernization Reserve and the Capital Reserve.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member Cox and seconded by Member Jansen. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we are on F 4.2 Administration Report number A24-035, Volunteer Recognition Policy. And I would like Allison Gray, our Director of Corporate Services and Clerk, to speak to this.
Thank you. So staff have been looking at what to do on this topic for a bit. We have a very old, out-of-date policy. So on the idea of reviewing policies every once in a while, staff are bringing this forward. The idea is that we'd have 2 standing annual awards that we presented at a council meeting. So this would be a Good Neighbor Award. Details as to eligibility are included in the attached policy. And then one focused on the youth of the municipality, which would be an Outstanding Youth Award for 18 years or younger. So those would be done at a council meeting on an annual basis, subject to nominations being received. So we would put out nominations are open on our social media, application be there, people could apply. And then once per term in the last year of council's term, we would hold a general volunteer reception. This would be open to the community for any volunteers that wanted to attend. Would be held during National Volunteer Week, or at least right around that time, depending on facility availability. This piece generally was in our existing policy, was the once a term reception piece. So looking to keep that going forward. Holding one on a regular basis is just not feasible with our current resources. So holding it once per term seemed a positive solution that would let us sort of recognize the efforts through the course of the existing council term. So if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have some questions. Member Cox and then Member Taylor.
Through the chair. This is nice. Except it's only 2 awards. I would prefer to have a merchant or service provider who's gone above, 1 award, an individual who goes out of their way, 1 award. Like picking 2 people out of a whole township, and that's all we do. And there's nothing in here for a group that does. I don't know. I'll think Lions, Rotary, Legion. So I think we need to have a little expansion on this if we're going to do it once every 4 years, to have a little bit more in there. And I believe with the youth one too, like I know of youths out there who belong to, I'll pick another name out of the thing, a cadet. And they do a lot of community service. But then there's another person who just goes to a fair, and then we have to decide who's who. I just think that we have taken it and we've made it very vague, and I worry about vague as I worry about vague with our grants. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, back to Member Cox. So again, these are nominations that are coming in from the community. One thing that many communities struggle with, because I reached out to other municipalities, is actually getting nominations to come in. It is exceptionally difficult. Everyone's great in the first 1 to 2 years of a program, and then people run out of names to submit, or they're just not interested. So that is an issue that we would have to hopefully find a bit of a plan to try and deal with. We can happily expand it to include a business award if council so chooses. The Good Neighbor Award could be broadened to include community groups. So it's neighbors, individuals, or community groups. That's easily done. It's entirely council's policy. The reception is for all community groups and volunteers. So it's not just our culture and recreation appointees and such like that. This would be open to the broader community to attend. So.
Thank you very much. Member Cox?
Yeah, supplemental. In my experience of volunteering, I think the more you get it out there and the more people that are involved and get it, it makes it better. Because in this day and age right now, no offense, we're running out of volunteers. We are not recognizing them. They're busy. I know in every single group I'm in, we're constantly looking for volunteers and people are always busy. So I don't know if this is something that we spread out to our groups that are out there, like the Matchedash Hall and those different groups, or what we do. But I think we need to put this out there more and get some feedback on it and figure out how we're going to make this, because it's only once every 4 years. Awards are annual. Okay, sorry. Yeah, and then we once every, anyway, I just think that those are my opinions. That's all. There you go.
Thank you. So we had Member Taylor and then Member Brennan, please.
Member Cox took some of my steam away because volunteers are hard. I can think of a couple around the township that should be recognized, or we're going to lose them. And my question is to Allison, then, assuming whenever we come up with the plan, then what committee selects the successful candidates? Where do we do that? Or did I miss that in here?
So my thought had been is that the names come forward to council picks. Straightforward, no different than
That's all I have.
comparison to make, but our regular council appointment process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Brennan.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to the deputy. Just on the business side of things, just my few years around here tells me that the chambers are doing a pretty good job of rewarding businesses and recognizing businesses. So I'm just wondering, how do we get involved in that aspect of things? I mean, we support those programs by attendance and so forth, but this one here I like because it includes possibly NGOs and others too. So I'm just wondering, asking for your experience.
First of all, we don't have a chamber. It's really a chamber in Seg Bay. There are business people out there that people know that do things, and I would call them the silent providers. I mean, I can name you 4 businesses in the last 6 months that have been good neighbors, and probably a lot of people don't know. And those are the ones I'm looking at. The chamber does business of the year and applause for you and that, but these are good neighbor awards. This is a business who goes out of its way maybe to donate something to someone or help someone out, and you can find out about it through the community. And that's one thing I was going for. Because if you decide you're going to pick a merchant, and then you've got an individual who's got their way possibly on a continuous basis, now you have to pick between a merchant and an individual. So I was just thinking that if you opened up the categories, that's all.
Chair, I think you can't see me, but I have my hand up.
I know I can't. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I think the clerk is working on ways to broaden it, but I would caution council, I would also be inclined to stay away from businesses, because we know a lot of our active businesses are not appropriately zoned, and there's all sorts of issues that we have to work through. And if you recognize one over the other, you're giving someone more recognition, which turns into more profit, and then the other businesses are going to have their upset. I would stick with the community groups, individuals, whatever, volunteer kind of things. I would steer you away from businesses unless you're really clear about what you're doing.
Until it says merchant, that's where I went with business or service provider. So if you want to take that out, you feel free.
Okay, thank you very much. I agree with all of the comments and include your last one, Member Cox, about remove the word merchant from this. And I also was coming here also to say we need to add more awards and more award categories rather than the 2, and really make it a prestigious and a bit of a gala, an event that people would like to not only receive an award, but perhaps come to an award presentation or event or whatever it ends up being. And to Member Taylor's comment about a subcommittee or a group that would determine that, I too think that having a recognition committee of council is a very good way to engage the public and our residents in being able to bring those names forward, be part of the solution and part of this opportunity. Recognition is such a necessary piece of any kind of group business, whatever. It's something that's relatively cost inexpensive to do. And I think that this is a great opportunity, and I would like to add, if this is the direction council goes, to have a senior volunteer award volunteer award. You know, so for each of our awards, someone who's stood out. But I do believe that a committee made up of representatives from each of our 5 wards would be the way to go for this. Member Cox?
I don't have a problem with council doing it because we all represent all the wards. I don't have a problem with that part of it. My only thing was if we take out the emergent or service provider and maybe when and we put in a service group, that would solve a lot of problems on it, because these are individual ones and maybe there should be a group that has gone out of their way and needs to be recognized. And I know that a lot of the committees I belong to, they do recognize their volunteers and they do it very well. And so I don't have a problem with that. I just thought that if something happens, just through the chair to the clerk, if something happens and we have a couple, could we give out a couple? Just try to spread the joy.
Through you, Madam Chair. So one thing that's easily done is adjusting from 1 award to be presented annually to 1 to 5, depending on the number of applicants. That is easily accomplished. It's very easily to make the amendment to take out the words merchant and service provider and insert service group. That's easily accommodated. So that's one piece.
I'd be happy with that. That's very good. Thank you very much.
On the seniors piece, the only thing I would caution again is these are nominations that are coming in from the community, not from council members and such. They're coming in from the community. So again, having dealt with programs like this in the past and having reached out to municipalities from North Bruce to the GTA on this, they'll have a great uptake in the first couple of years, but sustaining them long-term with nominations becomes very problematic. So sometimes not awarding too many all at once is a good thing for the longevity of the program. So you don't want to give out 5 awards in 1 year and then have none the next. So it's a balancing act as to how many you open it up to. It's great that we have folks that that the community wants to recognize. That's wonderful. But if you give something to everyone, does it devalue also how many you're giving out? So just food for thought. On the idea of so for the annual awards, it would be at a council meeting. They'd receive a certificate, something to take home. One of my last municipalities, we had like a plaque that was on the wall outside the office. It just had the names every year engraved on it, just like a running plaque. See them at football cabinets and hockey cabinets and stuff where they just have, the team that won that year. And it's just on display. Simple update every year. Once the initial plaque is purchased, it doesn't cost a lot to operate that. The once a term reception in the last year, which I believe National Volunteer Week is in April, would be a coffee, tea, cookies reception. This is a policy right now that's operating with no budget. So to bear that in mind as well. And we are again working with limited staff resources. This would be up to only a few of us in the office to pull this whole thing together on top of all of our existing job duties. So.
Oh, thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you for that. Member Cox, please.
I'm good. Through the chair to Allison, is that I get where you're going, but what I want to say is it says 1, but if we decide there's 2 or 3, we can have that option to do it. And the other one was, if you need help to setting these things up, I am sure members of council, I being one, knowing other ones, we would definitely help for your yearly reception. And I think that would be a good thing for council to do to help you with that. But other than that, I'm okay if we just know in our hearts that if some 2 or 3 come in really good, we could do that.
So based on current discussion, unless council sends us back in its entirety, so that section on the Good Neighbor one would be expanded to be 1 to 3 per year. The second bullet under eligibility, we'd remove merchant or service provider and insert service groups and organizations. So I think that captures what some of them want, what some members wanted to include to broaden that out. And that for individuals can absolutely include seniors. So if you have a wonderful senior that's contributing a great amount to the community, again, with 1 to 3, if council wants that to be 1 to 5, then that's fine. It's council's discretion. Again, that reception is in the last year of the term.
Thank you very much, Allison. I think we've covered it because we do realize that when we were looking for a senior one, we did have trouble finding one. So I think, and that's not just personal, I think in here it says individual goes other way to assist seniors. So it could be a senior assisting a senior. I don't have a problem with that. I just didn't want to miss those service groups and not have the opportunity that if we get really lucky on a year where we have some really good people, that we need to keep them going. Thank you.
Thank you. Great discussion. And it actually jogged my memory that at the last Culture and Recreation Committee meeting, we had a discussion. I had mentioned to the group that in the 2 years I've been on Culture and Rec, we only talk about recreation, and we don't talk about culture. And the group was excited and interested in moving forward with a culture lens. So again, just as a nod to perhaps Director Belfry, who chairs that committee, that if there is an opportunity or a role, however big or small, for the Culture and Recreation Committee of Council to assist with this great initiative of recognition, that might be something going forward. Do we have a motion, please?
Thank you. So the motion reads that Administration Report A24-035 dated November 27th, 2024 regarding volunteer recognition policy be received, and further that the volunteer recognition policy be approved as amended.
Thank you. And I'm looking to council for moved by Member McIntyre and seconded by Member Cox. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much.
Chair, may I interrupt you for 1 second, please?
Yes.
Councillor Jensen has to leave shortly. So we wondered if you could pull up the 2 items of new business that he pulled so that he could speak to them.
Thank you. Let's go to those items. We're looking at, sorry, just going to my notes. Let's start with item D 2.1, the Coldwater. I don't have it in front of me, sorry. And then Coldwater, is it what's the first one? D 2.1 and then D 2.2 Coldwater Lions.
The water truck.
Thank you.
So this request normally comes forward every single year. Council approves it every single year. In talking with the organizers, we thought it appropriate to bring forward to just have this approved on a permanent go forward basis so that they're not having to make the request on an annual basis. It's a water spraying truck that is used to help with the demo derby. So it just keeps the dust down. So in all my ways back on all of council's records that I could find, I've never seen it denied. So like I said, it's before you today because of that.
Thank you. And yeah, sorry, I was just going to mention that Member Cox did declare a pecuniary interest and has left the council chambers for this item. Member Taylor, please.
Yeah, thanks, Member Jansen, for bringing it forward. I certainly would support that and a recommendation that it gets approved every year, but they would still have to send a request to staff to confirm it. Yep. So I would agree 100%.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Member Brennan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm part of this too. I'm thinking, of course, of Otis Park when I look at these things. So we'll talk later. And what is the value of the fee? Because it is a contribution on our part. What is the value? What would the fee cost?
So through the chair, if I can, the fee's probably not, like I couldn't give you a dollar rate here, but in general, it's staff time on overtime and the value of the vehicle and fleet, which we do recover back to our reserves to pay for future replacements. So an estimate value of somewhere around $100 an hour, blended, and then over the hours that they do attend, which is kind of like three to 5 hours a day.
And okay, so give me the total number. Like how many people? What is the overall donation, if you will, that we're providing here.
So through the chair, probably best estimate is about $1,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion, please?
Thank you. Motion reads that the correspondence from the Coldwater and District Agricultural Society regarding waiving fees for a water truck be received and that the fees for the water truck be permanently waived.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by member Taylor, seconded by member Jansen. All in favor? And carried. Thank you. We'll go straight to D 2.2. Member Jansen, you pulled this. Did you want to speak to it, please?
Yes, let me just pull it up on my screen here. Okay, so every year around the holidays, the Lions Club does lots of great work within the community of Coldwater. They're asking for some assistance in closing the road for the parade, as well as waiving the ice rental fee for the New Year's Eve family skate that they have planned, and then permission to use the Coldwater Fairgrounds and waiving any associated costs. I'd like to say that I'd support doing this. I know that we did last year as well, and ask that council waive these fees, as well as allow the use of the fairgrounds for their New Year's Eve event. Thank you.
Any discussion from council? Member McIntyre?
I agree with Member Jansen, a terrific group. It's a one-off once a year, so I'd be in favor of it.
Thank you. My only question would be to the clerk. Should council have a policy regarding service groups using space so that these requests aren't coming to us one-off, or do they need to come one-off? And Member Brennan alluded to the fact that there's a service group in his area that may bring this same thing forward. Just an opinion.
Through you, Madam Chair. So normally this would be, they normally apply for an annual grant. However, the funds from their 2024 grant were applied to their 2023 event. So, which held right after budget was considered last year. So that's why it was applied to it. So this is kind of to square it all away. Council has traditionally done this one. With respect to a policy, we tend to push all our community groups to apply for grants. So council sees the scope of what people are requesting all at once. And so they can get the full idea of the cost of those pieces. So you'll see, and we'll get into it. I think grants won't probably come till Friday, but you'll see that larger discussion happen on Friday.
Thank you. So they didn't apply for a grant for 2024 for these events.
But their 2024 grant got applied to the 2023 rental. Because the 2023 rental happened immediately following approval of the 2024 budget. So the timing, just the calendar dates and timing just
got
a little confuddled.
Thank you for clarifying that. And if there are no further questions, may I have a motion, please?
Thank you. Motion reads that the correspondence from the Coldwater Lions regarding the 2024 Santa Claus Parade, New Year's Eve and fireworks grant request be received, and that a grant be provided to cover the cost of the ice rental for the family skate on December 31st, 2024, and any related associated costs with the annual New Year's Eve fireworks event. For committee, they do apply for the road occupancy permit every year.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by member Taylor, seconded by member Brennan, all in favor and carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, member Jansen. You're leaving the meeting now. Okay, and can we have member Cox come back? There she is. Okay. We are now on administration report. It's agenda item F 4.3, report number 824-039, Kuchiching OPP Detachment Board, terms of reference, and to Allison Gray, our Director of Corporate Services and Clerk, to present, please.
Thank you. So your police service, your police board has been up and running for a couple meetings now. So one of the first things on their to-do list, as required is to, put a terms of reference in place. This acts as basically the operating agreement between the board and the municipalities. So it covers things about their roles and responsibilities, authority to do stuff, their composition, how the appointment process works, filling of vacancies, their structure, how they're remunerated, that type of stuff. So it's a pretty self-explanatory document. So it's just if there's any questions, this will also be going before the other 3 member municipalities over the next couple weeks.
Thank you very much for that. And we'll scan over to the committee. Okay, Member Brennan, please.
Thank you, through the chair to the clerk. Yeah, this is great news. It's nice to see this thing up and running. It's been a long time coming. Stop that. Now, we're supposed to ID the priorities here, like
No,
today?
that's the next item on the agenda. This is just the terms of reference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, may we have a motion read, please?
The motion reads that Administrative Report A 24-039 dated November 27th, 2024 regarding the Kuchiching OPP Detachment Board terms of reference be received and that the Kuchiching OPP Detachment Board terms of reference be approved.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member McIntyre, seconded by Member Cox. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. So Chair Clerk, are we going to member updates now?
No, Madam Chair, you have G.1 to address yet.
Thank you.
And if it helps, Madam Chair, I can speak to it.
Yeah, can you go ahead? Sorry, I didn't have that noted in my script.
Yeah, so, and Member Cox might chime in as well because she's one of the members on the board. So like I said, the board has met a couple times at this point, and they're trying to figure out with the local detachment what the local action plan priorities will be for the next year or so. And are seeking input from the area councils as to what their top 3 only priorities are. Because if you have 3 priorities from every municipality and they're all different, then that's a lot of priorities. We do expect, or I think the board anticipates that there'll be some similarities coming through the messaging. But they are looking to hopefully work with the detachment commander to put the local action plan together, which is their short-term strategic planning operating document, and looking for your input. So
thank you very much. Member Brennan, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I've pondered this list. I'll give you my top 3. We'll go from there. Number 1, first one would be their item 9, road safety. Most of the complaints that I get are related to speeding. We get lots of them. So we it's an area there that I think is important. My second choice would be property crime and clearance rates for property crime. We live in a neighborhood where trucks, including my own, are like it's number 2 to be stolen, apparently. Trucks, snowmobiles, ATVs, trailers that people use for hunting. The theft rates are pretty high in our neighborhoods. And I certainly think that's an area where we would love to have above average attention. And my third choice would be the provision of community-based crime prevention initiatives, community patrol, and criminal investigations. And I'm hoping that leads to dealing with things like perhaps homelessness issues and things like that. Those are my 3 choices.
Thank you. Any other members wanting to speak? Okay, Member Taylor, please.
Yeah, I like the ones that Member Brennan, but I also like community satisfaction with policing provided. I'm getting all kinds of complaints that whether they can get in on that 1888 number, and as a rule, most of the people that complain to me is that the lack of concern or feedback from the OPP, and I've relayed that to our OPP rep as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, back to the clerk. How would you like to put forward our items, knowing that there are 4 presented and we have 3 that the committee or the board is looking for?
I believe that's up to council to sort it out as to which ones they deem to be a priority.
Okay.
Got
So-
now, so road safety and speeding, property, reduced property climb, I'm gonna put reduced
Crime.
property climb with improved clearance rate, community-based crime prevention patrols. So that would be increased. Community-based crime prevention patrols and improved community satisfaction with police and communication feedback, and response.
Thank you. Maybe we should go through the committee and ask for their top three. Just ask everyone to weigh in and see if we still end up with four.
Yeah, I'll maybe jump first. I'm thinking that maybe there's a compromise with what member Brennan and I, but if the community's satisfied, then that may answer, number two may answer number five.
Okay, so you're looking at road safety, property crime, and satisfaction as your three. Member Brennan, would you be satisfied? Would you be satisfied with those three, or do you still want to see the community-based crime prevention as part of your top three?
They're all good. I'm fine with.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Cox.
I'm good. I wonder. Yeah, like through the clerk, are these the main ones or what with the like the regular numbers, not the Roman numeral ones? Are those the three we're supposed to be picking out of, like 1, 2, 3, 4? You see where I'm going here?
Mm-hmm.
Or do we pick the Roman numeral subsections under them?
It's only 4 numbers in.
Yeah. That's where I'm not sure.
Or 5.
I think
See, I
the
just
local
noticed
action
that.
plan is intended to address the following.
Yeah.
So within any of those categories, they're asking, what are your priorities? They're not saying that you have to pick one of them as it's listed. They're saying, what are your
Right.
general priorities?
Yeah.
That they would then fit into wherever they fall under that local.
Yeah,
action
so
plan.
we're looking at the numbers, not the Roman numerals.
Yeah, you're looking at general things. So
Yeah.
if you're.
Quantitative and qualitative performance objectives and indicators, interactions with, and the other, is that what we're talking about?
I'm gonna
I'm
have to
assuming.
default to you, Member Cox. I wasn't at the meeting. This was brought.
Well,
forward
this
at,
was just
so-
whipped forward, sorry. But
I
I'm,
think
I'm good with what they said. I'm good.
Thank you. Member Burkett? Sorry, Member Burkett?
I'm good with that as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And Member McIntyre?
Yeah, I like the same 4 as everyone else.
Yeah, but we
We're three. We're
Yes.
asked for three.
third out and replace it with his.
I'm either way.
That's how we
Yeah.
got a consensus.
1, 2.
Yes. Okay, and I'm good with that too. Shall we ask for a motion?
Okay, the motion reads that the Council for the Township of Severn advises the Kuchishing OPP Detachment Board of the following 2025 local priorities: road safety and speeding, reduced property crime and improved clearance rates, improved community satisfaction with police and communication feedback and response.
Thank you very much. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member Cox, seconded by Member Brennan, all in favor. And carried. Thank you very much. I believe we're on our member updates portion of the agenda. Okay, so we'll start with Ward 1. Member Taylor, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll start with the Matchedash Community Heritage Center. The hall is being used regularly. In fact, now on Monday, we're going to decorate the hall for Christmas. And for committee update, the new signage has been installed along the side of the road and on the building. It looks very good. Coldwater Mill, we've had 3 successful Christmas vendors in November, and they happen on November the 2nd, 16th, and 23rd. The next big event is on Saturday, December 7th. Santa is going to come to the mill for photos, and the mill in combination with the Lions Club are going to be handing out candy to the kids, and hot chocolate will be offered at the mill as well. And just to let you know that the Quarter Mill is working very well with the BAA and the Lions Club, and it's great to see all the groups working together there. And the final one I've got is Severn Environmental Association with Severn Sound Sustainability. The CAO and Member Brennan and I attended the climate exchange review, and on November the 21st. Excellent speakers and a lot of good information there. And that's what I've got for now.
Thank you very much. So we don't have our Ward 2 counselor now. So let's go to Ward 3. Member Brennan, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just on the physician recruitment program, you heard this morning Ms. Russell speak about the importance of a full-time recruiting position at the hospital there, and that is of course critical to our work with the hospital here in Aurelia. I'll go through this one. Melanie and Dr. Ben, and Melanie is the recruiter for us. Elizabeth McNall attended the second annual repatriation in Dublin. They reconnected with a number of Canadian learners abroad and discussed pathways to get them back home. Around 40 students request an opportunity to come into the community to observe. Currently, we're reviewing our learner capacity and maybe reaching out to surrounding communities, as we do not have capacity for all the learners. So just something for council members to keep in mind. Anyone who has home times in close proximity and it has a strong desire to support family medicine, we'd love to hear from you. Community physicians have agreed to take on students for the summer of 2025. This event yielded 155 potential candidates. In Manchester, England, I went there just right after that. There were many GPs that are starting their journey towards Canadian licensing. Our group there was pleasantly surprised to learn that our wraparound support for assistance with licensing pathways, family settlement, and spousal employment are very attractive to them. That event yielded nearly 100 attendees. We will be hosting a community tour for 2 GPs, a husband and a wife, on December 30th in our community. So hopefully I get to do another real estate tour. The Canadian Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance, who we've partnership with Barrie and Midland, have also been active. From this event, we yielded 84 potential applicants, and we'll be arranging for a joint community tour from a physician practicing in another Ontario community for that. So needless to say, super active and getting results. So thank you for that. Otis Park. I hate to admit it, with us having 5 parades on the go, but I was actually at the Aurelia Santa Claus parade. Otis Park had submitted a float. It was the theme was the Grinch. The reason I was there is they had a breakdown in their prime mover and trailer, and I ended up taking the float, which was a converted golf cart down there. I could not believe the work that the volunteers put into making that float. Next year, I'm going to encourage them to participate in at least 1 or 2 Severn parades. I had a lot of fun bringing it home. I followed the Otis Park pumper, or the Oromadonti pumper truck, all the way to the highway. I had it loaded on the back of my vehicle, lights a blaring. So I had my own private parade after that. So anyway, kudos to the Otis volunteers. Fantastic job. And there is a video of it on the Midland News if you are interested. This year, they're not making pies, but they have made 846 apple crisps. And they've been selling some of them at the country fair on Saturdays. They've sold 200. They're $15 each. If anybody, I have some freezer capacity. Anyone is interested, let me know. E-transfer me the money, and I will get your order for you and deliver it whenever it suits you. Anyway, they're doing a great job on that, and bushels and bushels of apples, just amazing. I also attended the District 5 Ontario Agriculture Association as a board member down in Midhurst. this in the last month or so. And that it's just amazing what these societies do across Ontario. The volunteers blew, like, you know what they put into judging, training, and contests? I just tell you, it was a big education for this guy. And finally, the Chamber of Commerce has had an advocacy meeting. One message that they're asking me to send to you is that they're saying that we will support as best they can. This is in writing letters and so forth, where the townships are having challenges with the province or the feds. For instance, funding for municipalities, stable funding for municipalities. So they're offering to do that. I think that in this world where elections are not too far away, we would be remiss not to take advantage of any opportunity by a business group to support our ongoing sustainable financial needs. They're also big on pulling together a group to try to get funding for what they call the 412 highway. And that group would go all the way down from Oshawa to Windsor. They do really believe that if we fix that, when the minerals are coming down from, the Ring of Fire and so forth, that we stand to economically gain substantially in the Aurelia and surrounding area. Therein is my reports.
Thank you very much. For Ward 4, I do have a report to the Cumberland Beaches 4th Annual Santa Claus Parade is this Sunday, December 1st at 2 p.m. along Cumberland Avenue, ending again at Hope Community Church, where there will be Santa and Mrs. Claus with pictures, letters to Santa, hot chocolate treats, face painting, crafts, all of that. All ages, family friendly, always free. Included in the parade this year are prizes for floats and for the pets along the parade route. So we do have pets coming. And this year, as always, donations of non-perishables are greatly appreciated and will be collected by myself and the other members of council that will be walking in the parade. The continues its spirit of caring and giving with an all-ages hockey game with a very special and urgent fundraiser that our firefighters and fire trucks will be supporting by their attendance, as always. Lots of fun. The kids get to play against the firefighters, police and emergency workers, and it's always a highlight. There's also a barbecue and craft vendors. This will happen a week Saturday, December 7th. Puck drops at 2 p.m. sharp. Again, location is on Cumberland Road in Cumberland Beach, in the front of Hope Community Church. Any money and all proceeds and funds raised are being donated to a local family that's in crisis this holiday season, and all donations of money, etc., are greatly appreciated. And if anyone wants to speak to me after about how to do that, it is an anonymous family. We do not know who that is. We have the community church that is managing that confidentially for us. The Aurelia Public Library's November donation drive is coming to an end. If you have not had a chance to go online at aureliapubliclibrary.ca to donate a gift of $20 or more, you will get a tax receipt. You will get some awesome library swag. And we very greatly appreciate the support that the public library gives and spills over to Severn. As you know, we are able to use their great services through our partnership with them. That's my update. Member Member McIntyre for Ward 5, please.
Thank you, Chair. Member Deputy Cox and I will be decorating the streets in Washego when we get the ornaments. I think they're probably trees again, I think. No? What do we got? No? Deputy Cox will report on that when she gets there. And our Santa Claus parade is December the 14th. It's a 5 o'clock start. This is a different time than normal. So 5 o'clock, we request anybody who may be watching, if you're having or putting in a float, to be at the Assisi's Church, the normal starting place, at 4 o'clock. That's it. We'll wait for Deputy Cox to tell us when we're decorating.
Thank you. Deputy Cox then.
I sent everybody the tourism industry meeting updates so they can look at them. Remember Brennan and Becky and I went. I sent you the impact information. I don't think we've mentioned this, but I'm going to mention it. It's not part of the meeting. Anyway, our new EV charging stations are exciting. I saw that. And here's getting 7, Washego's getting 4, and Coldwater is getting 3. The Couchiching Police Services Board, I will be sending out the minutes from that to you. I will indicate to you that when we ask the OPP, they give us all their stats, and basically what we said to the officer, the commissioner, whatever, I'm sorry, staff person, is those are okay, but can you just tell us what you're worried about? And the biggest one is impaired driving. Our numbers of impaired driving have almost doubled, and they have a very big concern on that one. I sent out parade details and dates for the times. The other one is the paramedic station in Coldwater. They are going to be starting the new station in Wabashine, so the paramedics will be moving there probably in 2026. The county's budget was 962 million, and the percentage was 3.625. We compromised on that. The other one is, what's happening with Wasego? So we applied for money from the county for Christmas banners, and we got it. And then there was a whole fluffle about bank accounts and things. So anyway, bottom line is within a week, we will be having Christmas banners to put up in Wasego, plus all the other ones to hang on the trees. And we'll all work together to get that up. The other one, I have some help for us. We're okay. And the other one is I have to make an announcement is before the Really Santa Claus parade, the chamber had to reach out because they thought their Santa float was destroyed. So they had to come to Severin for help. They wanted to borrow the Coldwater Lions float, but then they figured out that they could fix that float. So I just wanted to reach out and let Aurelia know that we're always here to help them. We're right there for you whenever you need anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Burkett, please, for your update.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I sit on the airport committee for the county, and of course I can't say much, but stay tuned for some big news. Okay. Hopefully very exciting for this whole area. As the deputy mayor said, 3.625 budget rate. I guess we'll find out tomorrow how that affects us, or Friday. Andrew, thank you. I attended the Poppy campaign, which kicks off it's been the last 3 years. So what's Shipley? Is it Shipley that's the MP? He invites us all to kick it off and donate, which I'm quite happy to do. But it's amazing how many of our veterans are in dire needs and require help. And last year, I think they raised about $130,000, and that money went to some of the families that are in need. Good organization. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to our CEO, please, for her update.
Thank you. Through the chair, members did not pull the strat plan update, but I wanted to just bring it to your attention because you've done some really great work. You had 14 objectives, 8 are complete and 5 are in progress. So only one thing hasn't been started, and we held that off just for a tight budget year. But some really great progress at halfway through the term, and Tracy did it in a really nice, easy to read format for you to share as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So I missed an agenda item, was that?
No, it wasn't pulled,
No.
but
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we have no closed session today, so we're moving to agenda item K, meeting adjournment, and over to you,
there's a lot,
Allison. Sorry?
a lot of cards.
Madam
in the-
Chair, again, I'm waving my card. I know it's difficult to be the chair and look from where you are, your vantage point, but if I could just comment on what through you, what Madam CAO said.
Please do, yes.
It was very well done, and I should have pulled it, but thank you very much. If you look at how it was portrayed in our agenda, thank you very much, and thank you to council. We've done a lot of work in 2 years, and without staff's help, we wouldn't have got there. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Member McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is your last meeting as of this committee, and just want to thank you very much for a valiant effort, even being away from the chamber. So,
Well, and thank you for your patience today as I attend virtually. I'll be back in chambers next week. So thank you all very much for that. Okay, so we're looking for a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn. That's now adjourned at 12:30.
Thank you. Do I have a mover? Moved by Member Taylor, seconded by Member Brennan. All in favor? And carried. Thank you all, and we will reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to begin our budget meeting.